Hi, Tony. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this with me today.
You're welcome.
For the listener, I met Tony a few weeks ago at the gym, and he was over there doing his stretches, and so I went over and talked to him, and he told me a little about himself, and I asked him if he would do a long form conversation, and he agreed to, and so I really appreciate that. Just kind of give you the layout of how this will go. I want to get to know Tony and kind of like your background, your history, and then go into your career and then possible things you've learned along the way. Okay. So the first season I like to talk about is Tony 1 to 20. Let's just get right into Tony 1 to 20.
Well, I'm a native Washingtonian.
Okay.
I was born in Seattle. However, I had a kind of you'd call it complex PTSD because my mother got divorced 3 times.
Oh.
And I never went to the same elementary school 2 years in a row.
Okay.
So a lot of moving around. I finally ended up in Sumner, and I went to Sumner Junior High and high school all those years, and I still moved 4 times while I was in Sumner. So a lot of movement, a lot of...
At the time, did you know that was weird or bad, or did you care, or was it just like, this was my life?
So the memory I have the most of that earliest childhood was when my dad divorced my mother for my dad, and it was I guess for the first time.
Yeah.
And so from my perspective, he left me instead of divorcing my mother. So I think subconsciously, well, I know subconsciously, I had an abandonment issue.
Right.
And that kind of clouded a lot of my relationships for years and years and years.
And at that time, they probably didn't have counseling for kids and all that other stuff. You just
No.
world with the bunches. Where now that's a really big thing where you've experienced some kind of trauma. They want to help the kid with that.
Yeah.
So when you were as a child, did you play outside? What did kids do back then?
I don't recall a whole lot of my childhood until I got to like the Sumner Junior High, and then I just hung out with friends, played football and baseball at the school, and that continued on into high school, where in my junior year, and this is dating myself a lot, because do you remember the Kingdom in Seattle?
I wasn't here back then.
Okay, well, so that was built during my time, and so Sumner High School we were the first year in the AAA, which is the largest division for high school sports at the time. And it was our first year in 1977, and no one expected us to do anything. And we went in as a kind of a wild card high school football.
What was this? Football?
High school football. And we kept on winning. And we went all the way to King Bowl #1, and we actually won. And we were the state high school AAA champions in 1977.
And so do you remember what grade you were?
That's my junior year.
What position did you play?
So I played defensive back.
So you really enjoyed football. What aspects of football did you enjoy? Just the teamwork, the camaraderie, or?
Yeah, the teamwork, and just the guys that the friends and teammates that I had we were tight. It was a smaller community where it seemed like everyone knew everyone, and we made a commitment to really be committed to doing well, not partying during football season, and really doing well. And the interesting part was that there was a system in Sumner that from the junior high to the high school, it was the same offense and the same defense. So we had done this for years. And so when we got to high school, it's like, yeah, but this is not a new setup or new formation. It was like things we'd been doing for years.
Yeah.
And we weren't the biggest, we weren't the fastest, but we executed real well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they're saying with football. It's because different sports have different things you learn, but football is really teamwork. Because my boys play basketball and football. And in basketball, you can have that one star that can kind of take over the game. But with football, it's hard for just one guy to do everything, because you still need this person to block. You still need this person to do all the nitty gritty stuff that may not be as fun but they still have to do their jump.
Right.
And so my boys got a little taste of that playing both sports because they're like, it doesn't matter. Even if one person excels at 100%, the other person is playing at 50 and blows up the whole play.
Exactly.
So you would say, team sports is probably a good thing in football and stuff like that. You learned a lot.
Absolutely. Well, so when it comes to team sports and football in particular, my son is about to graduate from college, and I pretty much deliberately steered him away from football.
Oh, why is that?
Well, because of the injuries and the likelihood that he'll never play again. So he did play baseball and he played soccer, and so I think those served him a lot better than getting beat up on the football field.
That's been my personal philosophy as well. Is football fun? Sure. But I also look at it risk reward. It's very high risk.
Yes.
And very potentially low reward unless you make it to the NFL. And like you said, it's football injuries, head injuries. And so you did it and you turned out all right. But then with your own kids, you evaluate things a little differently, and you're like, I don't know if I want my child to do that. So they played baseball and soccer, right?
Yes.
Did you have to force them into that, or did they enjoy it?
They enjoyed it.
They enjoyed it?
Oh, yeah. They had a lot of fun.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about Tony, senior of high school. That's an interesting stage in life because it's like, what do you want to do with your life? Did you have an idea, or were you just kind of like, I'm going to graduate high school and see what happens next?
So I was kind of crystal clear on what I wanted to do, and that was fly helicopters. And I wasn't sure exactly how that was going to happen. So I applied to the Air Force Academy and the Military Academy at West Point. And normally it's like a 1.5-year process, and you find out the fall before the next year whether you're going to be accepted or not. And I hadn't heard anything. And so I also applied to go to the University of Washington. And another part of that was that my family didn't have any money to pay for my college.
Right.
This is back so I graduated in 1979. My grandfather was the brewmaster at the Rainier Brewery in Seattle. He had worked there his entire work life. He started there when he was like 18 years old, maybe 17. He was a gardener. He took care of landscaping, but he did such a good job. People noticed how well he did, and he was just a good person. And they employed him at the brewery, and then he basically rose through the ranks. He held every single position there, all the way up to brewmaster. So
brewmaster's like the general manager,
like a general manager, yeah. And
or just really good at beer.
Well, both.
Really good at drinking beer.
Yeah. Well, everyone loved vitamin R back in the day, and so I was the oldest of the grandchildren,
okay.
And he knew I wanted to go to college. He knew there was no money for college. So when an opportunity to work at the brewery showed up in April of 1979, I'm a senior in high school. I applied to University of Washington. I haven't heard anything from the academies. So I said, heck yeah, I'll work there. This was a union paying job. And he says, okay, great. I can open the door, but you got to get in there and earn the job. I worked graveyard 40 hours a week. So I started at 11 p.m. on Monday night. I got done at 7 a.m. in Seattle. I would drive to school. And I missed my first period class on Tuesday through Friday, which was advanced chemistry. And back then, they would let me do it. So the teacher was really cool. He says, like, just keep up with the tests and do your homework, which I had time at work to do it.
They knew you weren't just not showing up. They knew you were doing something.
Oh, yeah. They knew. I flat out told them. So I showed up on Monday at that course. And so I finished that course. I got a B+ instead of an A. So I had like a 3.87 was my GPA. So, but I was making plenty of money to pay for college. And that was for about 3 weeks, and it got into May. And then they're gearing up for the summer season. So I did work the graveyard shift, which is clean up. And then the day shift and the swing shift was the bottling process. So in May, mandatory 1 hour of overtime every day. So now I'm working 45 hours a week. It was
Not
crazy.
a senior. So
As a senior in high school, so on Mondays, I would get done with school. I'd drive directly to Seattle. So Sumner, going up to Seattle. My grandparents lived just on Beacon Hill, just right over the top from the brewery. And my grandmother, so I'd get there and I'd immediately just try and sleep. And then my grandmother would wake me up. She'd have a lunch ready for me. She'd have dinner ready for me. So I'd eat and go, and she'd have something for me. I'd go do my 8 and then 9 hours.
So when would you sleep during? So you would try to sleep?
I slept during the afternoon.
Okay. Well, that probably wasn't even 6 hours.
Oh, no. So it was probably from about 3:30 to 10. Yeah, I think so. So I just slept in the afternoons on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then the weekends, hang out and do stuff. So that went on until, I want to say, the end of May. And then I finally got a letter from the United States Military Academy saying, would you like to attend? So, which was great. I accepted. I went. So in the process of having people go to the academy, they have their initial, let's say, 1,500 people that are the top of the list that will get the letter in maybe September or October. And then half of those will say yes, half will say no, or like go to another academy, go get a scholarship to another university. So then they got to go offer like another 500 or 600 positions. And then they keep on going until they get their quota. I feel like I was the last person, just because of how late it was in the process that I got asked to attend. I feel like I was literally the last person to have the opportunity to go. So I said yes.
So I want to pause you there for a second. A couple of things I want to point out. What do you know? What drove you to want to become a helicopter pilot? Was there something you encountered when you were a kid? Was it a movie? Do you know what inspired that?
I think we grew up with the man on the moon in the 60s, and just aerospace was a big deal. Boeing was a big deal. And I think there was someone in the family that knew one of the like the Chopper 7 pilot, and it seemed like it was really cool.
Nice.
And then it was my stepfather at the time who was in the Korean War that says, yeah, if I I think I was offered to go to West Point, but I didn't. And it's like, I probably should have. And that planted the seed to considering doing the military academy.
Yeah. The reason why I ask is right now, it's very hard for them to get soldiers, extremely difficult.
Yes.
And they're trying all these different things, crazy bonuses. And it's like, well, part of it they can't control, because part of it is what is society to say about it today. So you had people in your life that kind of planted the seed. That had nothing to do with like the military. It was just, hey, you knew people and they planted a seed, where I think today's kids don't have that.
No.
Where, we just went to war for 20 years, but it doesn't have the positive connotation like it used to back then. And so I don't know how you fix that. How do you get kids excited about joining the military? And the broader question I'm finding today is kids being motivated in general. They have no inspiration, no motivation, and then it's like,
well, to a certain extent, I think so. A couple of those things is like, in respect to the military, like I deliberately did not encourage my kids to go to a military academy or even be in the military.
Yeah.
So shockingly, my son is in the Air Force ROTC, and he's going to become a pilot. So, and so that was a surprise, because I could have. My classmate was during that time was the superintendent at West Point.
Oh wow!
So not that would help a whole lot. It's just that it provides some. It's like, oh yeah, that we know that kid came from a good father, and so it's interesting that I deliberately avoided that, mostly because of the government war on terror had gone on for so long.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't really want to participate in that. As far as the motivation part goes, it's easily to get discouraged about what's happening in the country where things aren't going well. And I told my kids, I still tell them that it doesn't matter what happens to the country, to the society. There's always a place for someone who works hard, participates, and contributes to the community. So so I tried to instill that, a good work ethic, being smart, being aware, finding a way to contribute, finding a way to participate, and because like I look at like I'm a Italian heritage. Well, there was a Roman Empire at one time that went away, sure. But the people in Italy are still there. There always has been, there always will be people necessary for any kind of government or society that have to produce things, produce food, help each other as a community, and it's the people that are willing to get engaged, willing to contribute, do the hard work, that there's always going to be a place for them.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately, that's not the message that's being told to kids today or young people. It's the message of victimhood, the message of entitlement. And I think that this is partly why I started the podcast, is that that's the message that, for whatever reason, has been forgotten, unless some parents are instilling in their kids. So that's important. Okay, back to, you got accepted into the Army.
So it's the military academy at West Point, which is the Army military school.
So you don't, that's a little different than you don't go to like a recruiting station, right?
No.
You actually apply directly to West Point.
Yes, and it's
like how you apply for a college.
Well, you apply to the academy, and then you have to have a sponsor who is either like one of your senators or your congressman, or it can be a vice presidential type appointment. So your Congress people are involved in the process. They have to recommend you.
So how did you go about getting that?
God, that was so long ago, I don't remember. But it's a lot of paperwork.
Still this.
Is this, yeah. So really, there's a process that they have. I'm sure they've got designated staff members that's what they do. That's because it's a year-long process. They're continually do it. They're all like, so this is February of 2024, and the class of 2025 is probably almost established. They're just trying to get those last 100 or 200 identified, like me, in my process. So, and then now they're already working on 2026. So juniors right now are saying, yes, I'm interested in putting their package together to go to in the class of 26.
Okay, cool. All right, so you got accepted. What's that like? I'm assuming you went?
Yes, I went.
Okay.
So I graduated in, let's see, like in June of 1979 from Sumner High School. And I flew back to New York. I'd never been on a plane. Flew back to New York. I started on July 2nd, 1979. And I had no idea what humidity was. And because it was just breathtaking, horrible.
Yeah.
To be in New York on the East Coast in July. It was hot, it was humid, and it was definitely an eye-opener.
It's part of the shock. So you land and what?
So I basically just went right up to West Point. There was no checking things out. Went up to the academy, got bused right up there, and I literally started like the day or the next day.
Remember what that first experience was like to military life?
So the first experience at West Point is called cadet basic training.
Yeah.
So it's a summer of indoctrination to the military and the Army specifically. And at the time, I wish I had some photos of it, but I had long hair like John Travolta, down the middle, feathered back, and the barber had a great time on my head, and he just shaved it right on down, as with everybody, because everyone seemed to have long hair at the time. So I've got my hair shaved. We got issued uniforms. We learned how to stand at attention. We had 4 responses: yes, sir, no, sir, sir, I do not understand, and no excuse, sir. That was it. That was the only 4 things
you looked back on that time with fond memories, or were you kind of like, do you think at the time so I'm actually prior military as well, so I understand some of it. Do you, during that time, were you like, what am I doing with my life? Or were you like, no, this is fun?
I thought it was fine to a certain degree. The military part and the training that went well. It's when I got to my academic year company where there was still literally hazing going on.
Yeah.
And
They ended by
it was so like the other part of that was it was diminishing a lot because my first year was the first year for women to graduate West Point. So the class of 80 had the first female graduates. And so there was a lot of transition going on at the academy when I got there, but there was still a lot of traditional hazing and more in the way of just making you feel like shit.
Yeah.
And just talking you down and just ridiculous stuff. Just like why are your eyes not straight ahead? It's like, what, you're not supposed to be looking at me from down the hall. It's like, you're in deep trouble kind of thing.
And was that older classmen doing to younger, or was that the teachers?
But there's the other cadets.
The other,
So the staff.
junior, seniors picking on the freshmen and sophomores.
Yeah. Well, the sophomores were, so only the first year are called plebes. Those are the only ones that are harassed or hazed. Okay. And the sophomores kind of stay out of it because they just got done with that process. But the juniors and seniors, they are the chain of command that run the cadet organization and oversee some of the continuing military training. The teachers are all military officers, and they're focused strictly on academics or anything associated with that.
Interesting. So once the girls came in, then the older cadets didn't really know what to do with that, so they just.
Well, they knew what to do. It's just they had to make an adjustment, like everything else.
Yeah.
You had to start changing some of your verbiage.
Yeah.
And there was still hazing going on. There were still high expectations, and the women lived up to that. Well, at least the ones that graduated. People wash out for all kinds of reasons, whether it's just motivation or poor grades.
Do you remember what the PT standards were back then?
So every academy person that goes there is expected to be a student athlete. So they were extremely high, and everyone participated in sports as required, like intramural sports. So they're extremely competitive. We had seven man tackle football team, like intramural sports. It was
Played that.
Oh yeah, it was fun. And so the physical standards were just as high as they are in the military, and you were evaluated every semester, and it was part of your grade. So it was great. It was
I would expect that in a military college for you to be in shape.
Yeah.
Any other fond memories from that time? I'm assuming you did all 4 years.
Yep, I graduated, and my first year there was a couple of times where it came really close. I was like, because going back to how that transition from the summer to the academic year, and so I was literally standing at the wall. And the cadet first sergeant was way down there. And I just wanted to see who he was so I can remember who he was. So I am like looking. It's like, way down there. It's like he got right in my face. Like, you're supposed to keep your eyes straight forward, head and eyes straight forward. And it's like, just because you're looking at me, I'm going to make you the head laundry carrier. Which, like, I don't even know what that means, but it sounds bad. Put me in charge. So back then, we had a laundry service, and then you'd have a bag of laundry that get wrapped up, put in a room, and have the cadet's name. And so my job was to organize the other laundry carriers who were going to take the laundry, and then we had to bring it and put it on the bed of all of the upperclassmen. So I didn't know their names. I didn't know what room they were in. And I didn't even know my own classmates on the first day of showing up. And so I was like, you're kidding me, right? He's like, okay, I'm going to keep my eyes and head forward from now on. And we went to, so there's a lot of speakers that came. There's a general that came. And all I remember is some kind of a story that there's this dude walking along and he fell into a big pit. And for as hard as he could, for as long as he just couldn't get out of the pit. So he's trying to crawl out of it and try to dig out of it. And after hours of trying, he couldn't get out of the pit. And then he heard something up above and he thought it was someone walking around. So he started yelling, help, help, help me. And he didn't hear anything. And then the next thing you know, a tiger fell into the pit with him. And suddenly he was out of the pit. Don't know how he did it, but he just did it. It's like the message was, if you find the right motivation, you're going to get the job done.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to die. He got out of the pit. And so that kind of struck me as like, okay. It's like, that's a good message at the right time. And it just turned out like behind me was a couple of my classmates. I kind of mumbled that something about being head laundry carrier in E4. And the guy behind me says, well, I'm an E4. I'm a laundry carrier. It's like, you are? It's like, well, then show up at this room. It's like, I'm one too. It's like, show up at this room. Let's get organized. And it's like, from there, we made it work.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting how some lessons will show up at the right time if you're ready to receive them.
Yeah. No, that's a good story. Any other interesting, like if someone was interested in West Point, I'm sure it's a little different now, but any other interesting thing that stood out from you from that? I'm sure it's very rigorous mentally. It's hard enough, it's hard enough learning the mental side, then you have the physical side. That's probably why a lot of people wash out, because most people who go to college just have to worry about the academic. Right. Now you're having to do that, plus all the other games you play, plus the sport,
plus leadership.
Yeah,
because ultimately the military academy is designed to produce leaders for the Army and the future of the Army.
Yeah.
So you're learning leadership and all the skills that go with that. So I graduated about 1/3 of my class as far as standing. I did achieve an aviation spot to go fly helicopters like I wanted to. And back in that time, there wasn't an aviation officer basic course. So you went to another branch in the military basic course. And so I went to the infantry officer basic course because I'd already gone during one of the summers. I had gone to jump school at Fort Benning and got my parachute wings, did my 5 jumps.
I did that.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun, right?
Yeah. 3 weeks. I mean, because it's static line, you're just falling out and it does all the hard work.
Yeah.
The towers are still there, but that's fun. So you went to OCS?
So I went to the academy. So OCS is for enlisted personnel to become an officer. So the academy produces officers. So I got commissioned as a second lieutenant, went to the infantry officer basic course.
Was that in Fort Benning as well?
And that was at Fort Benning. And I did real well. I had a great time.
That should have been easy because you just came from West.
Well, I wouldn't call it easy, but it was fun. I had a lot of fun in the infantry.
Because you have some kids who just went to a normal college and go there.
Yeah.
That's probably a lot more mentally challenging because they're not used
to
it.
Well, so even ROTC, they do some summers of training. And so, it's difficult, but it's doable. We've been doing this for years. What happened though was at the end of infantry officer basic course, I was required to take an additional flight medical, and I failed it by 1 increment for my eyes. And I was just pissed. So I demanded a retest. They said, no, we don't retest on this. I said, yeah, you are. And I went back in. It's like, you're retesting. And I still failed. So
they didn't do that test earlier?
Well, it's like, so it goes back. It's one of those things, like, it's hard to know at the time how things influence other events later in life.
Yeah.
So the year I went to jump school, I also had an opportunity to go to get like solo in a helicopter. It was five weeks of flight training for a helicopter. There was one spot for my academic year for that year, and there was one guy in my company that was like, "Oh, I want to go." He wasn't very good standing academically, and he probably wasn't going to make aviation. And he didn't, but he was like, "Oh, I gotta go. It's like so important to me." And it's like, I'm thinking, it's like, it's not that big a deal. It's like, okay, you go ahead and go. So I went to jump school. Well, it turns out, had I gone and soloed, the military would have waived that medical 2 years later.
Yeah, but you didn't know this.
Right. I didn't know till after the fact. It was just one of those things like, you got to be kidding me. So, so yeah, the dream of flying an Apache helicopter kind of like just got squashed.
Yeah, let's sit in that moment. Once you realized that wasn't going to happen, what was your emotions like at that time? When all your dreams got crushed.
You really want to know?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah. Well, it's so well. Like I had a great time. I did really well in the infantry officer basic course, but so another classmate of mine and we just went out and got drunk.
Yeah.
At some club.
Yeah.
And just kind of drank our sorrows away.
So you both didn't make it?
So, or he was just
buddy.
He was just being a buddy. But then, so the time frame that this happened was like we had just finished our basic course, and they were still figuring out what's going to happen to everybody after that time, or maybe we're even close to being done. And so, at the same time as that was going on, I think I was able to put in, it's like, well, now if I got to stay in the infantry, I want to go to Ranger School there at Fort Benning. And he wanted to go to Ranger School also. And somewhere at the same time, the list came out to who from the basic course was going to go to Ranger School. And instead of doing it by merit, oh no, they did it by alphabet. It was A through M. And this guy was John McGinnis. And of course, I'm Patricelli. So the M, C, and P's were on the you're not going. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, because I think I was like number 7 or so. So I was top 10 on merit for that class of, I don't know, 150 to 200 officers.
Yeah, the military is very good at frustrating people.
Yeah. So
you want to be frustrated, go join the military.
Yeah. So it's like at that point, we just kind of like, well, it's just the way it is. So we're in the Army for 5 years, and he already selected to be in the infantry, and just he wanted to go to Ranger School, because being a infantry officer, that's like a high achievement that you can do right from the beginning to help give yourself some more credibility and just some experience and knowledge that other people are going to look at and say, oh yeah, Ranger School's hard.
Yeah. The leadership school.
Yeah.
So at that point, you probably, once you realize helicopter isn't then you knew, hey, just do my time and get out as your thing.
Well, I was still considering staying in the military for a long time. Okay. I really had a good time in the infantry, so that was fun. And so I ended up being assigned to Fort Ord, California, and it was the 7th Infantry Division. What's interesting about that is this is in 1984, and the 7th Infantry Division was going to be the first light infantry division in the United States Army. And so this is like before the first Gulf War, which is in 1990. So this is way before that. And so we had a ton of money.
So what does light mean?
So light means there's no vehicles. So the infantry company had literally no vehicles. So it was, you would walk to wherever you're going, or an aviation company would take a Black Hawk helicopter and move you and insert you in, and then you'd go do infantry stuff.
Yeah.
So this
you didn't even have Humvees.
We didn't have Humvees. So this was to supplement the Rapid Deployment Forces, which was the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Air Assault Division back in the day. So the Army wanted more rapid deployment forces, and they figured if they take away all the vehicles, they can get troops on the ground quickly and in theater, and then move them by with a helicopter aviation battalion or brigade, and then let them go do their thing. So we're the first ones. And do you remember the movie with Mel Gibson, We Were Soldiers Once, about the air mobile? Well, so that the battalion commander was Hal Moore. Okay, they specialed in Hal Moore to be the division commander for the 7th Infantry Division. I didn't know it at the time. This is like after the fact, I realized it. But they took him, they asked General Moore to come out of retirement to help get this division going. And my battalion was the first battalion of the entire division to get
Yeah.
get situated for the troops. We had really good NCOs. A lot of our NCOs were Ranger qualified and from the Ranger battalions. And back then, I remember my platoon sergeant was a Vietnam veteran. And so we had a lot of Vietnam veterans that had been in combat and been through the close of the Vietnam era. So there was a lot of really skillful NCOs that showed up. We had, is the beginning of cohort, which meant that the soldiers at basic training, brand new to the Army, they all trained together and they all went to the unit together. That was the beginning of that process.
I was like, hey, they built some camaraderie. Why don't we try to?
Exactly. So they wanted to maintain that. So we were the first ones to do that.
Interesting. So how was that? You enjoyed that?
I had a great time. That was the best time ever. And I learned how to scuba dive there in Monterey Bay. I learned how to skydive.
This is through the military or through your own person?
Just from guys that I knew how to do these things. And there was a skydiving club there, and it was great because, like you talk about the static line. Well, yeah, there's no static line when you free fall, and we didn't even have to pay for our jumps because we had National Guard pilots who needed airtime in their helicopters that would show up and fly us and all day long.
Yeah,
for 5 hours.
It's frustrating as the military can be. You can also do some interesting stuff from it.
Yeah.
So that was a fun time.
That was a great time.
And then what happened after that?
So I was there until about 1986. Was promoted from second lieutenant to first lieutenant. And then I can't remember if I got promoted to captain before I left. But I went. So the next step in the evolution of an officer is the infantry officer advanced course back at Fort Benning. So I went to that, and I think I selected going to. I wanted to be in a high speed unit. So at the time, the 2nd Infantry Division was in Korea on the DMZ. So I was able to select to go there. So after the advanced course, I went to Korea, and I was a battalion adjutant, the S1, working personnel for about 3 months.
Was fitness still a big thing for you back then?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the foundation of everything in the military. It's
good at all the PT.
Oh yeah. Well, even going back to high school, I was pretty fit and strong. In fact, a little quick story on that is like Sumner is had a lot of agriculture back there, and especially the daffodil and tulip bulbs. So my junior summer, before the year we took state, I worked out there, and me and a couple of football high school buddies, we would go around, and so the diggers would dig up the bulbs, put them in boxes, and they'd stack the boxes. Well, we would take the boxes and load them up on a flatbed truck to take them into process. So all day long, our job was to take a box and then get it to the dude standing on the back of a flatbed truck. So you'd basically stand there and you'd take a box and you'd throw it up there without tipping it over. I'd have to go flat, but that just completely built up my upper body in one summer because like I couldn't do shit at the beginning. And then by the end, we're just doing it. But I would come home covered in dust and just have a shower full of mud. But I did that for, I don't know, 2.5 months ish, and then right into football. And it was like, I was well prepared. And we had 2-a-day workouts at the beginning of that. So yeah, fitness was.
So one thing they're saying now, back to where kids are today, they're finding kids coming out of high school, even if they wanted to join, they're not physically fit to join because they're just not stressing physical fitness anymore for kids.
Yeah, it's like someone forgot that you got to take care of your body. And fitness is one of the most important things you can do.
Like our neighbor, we'll say names, he asked the school and he's in middle school now, he asked the school to not do PE, and I think you can get like a waiver now. And it's like, are you kidding me? We're like, my kids, you will go play, like if it's not wet outside, you're going to go outside and play, run around, do stuff. But now they can't even find qualified people coming out of high school to join because they're not even fit enough.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I don't know how to respond to that because it just seems so counterproductive. It's like maybe it's the school, maybe it's the change in culture. I don't know what it is.
Like probably when you went to school and I went to school, PE happened quite regularly.
Yes.
Plus all the other sports that you did within the school. And now it's like kids like elementary age PE like once a week. My buddy was a PE teacher in Tennessee, and this is relatively recent history. In his 10 years of experience, it went from like 5 days to 4 days to 3 and then to what? Like, how are you supposed to instill fitness into a child if they have PE once a week?
Yeah, that's baffling to even contemplate that.
So I was like, yeah, I wonder why kids can't go join the military. Even if they wanted to, they can't, because they're just like, you can't even do the basic like requirements of just showing up. Not will you make it, but like, can you actually show up? My 6-year-old, right now, he can do 7 or 8 pull-ups because that's just the thing in our family is fitness is a big thing. That's summertime, we're hiking, or my 2 boys could run a mile faster than me.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, okay, again, my excuse was I had ran for 6 years, so I got back to it last summer. But their motivation was beat dad, which was great. They beat me, so now my motivation this summer, I've already started training. It's like in January, I took 2 months off. So this summer, it's like, all right, I think at the time he was 10, he did a 5:52. And then my 9 or 8-year-old did a 6:18, and I did a 6:22.
That 5:52, that's an insanely fast. I think that's probably my fastest I've ever had in mine.
That's with him, like, not really trying. That's me trying and him like, oh, this is cute, Dad. So I was like, all right, this summer, I'm going to spend a lot of time doing this, just because even if I get faster, just think how much faster he'll get.
Right. Well, I mean, you're demonstrating a lot of things there. Like one, you're interested, you're doing it, you're making it fun and competitive for them in a fun way.
Yeah.
And they actually, obviously responding to it.
They make money if they beat me too, so that's
even more incentive.
So my 6-year-old, when he turned 6 on his birthday, he said, "I want to go run 6 miles." We said, we will do 6. I did get it to do like 2-3 miles. But it's like you said, it's like, I don't force them. It's, okay, Dad's running. Like my 6-year-old, he just has a natural, like he goes in the track, great form, enjoys it. Like if you force, it's hard to force a kid to do anything, but to go do that around a track, I want to foster that, right? Not because if it's not fun, then they won't do it.
Right.
But then my daughter, she's 7. She would go do like a couple laps because everyone else is doing it, I might as well, but then she would get bored. But then we got her an Apple Watch. It wasn't her. We have a family Apple Watch. Because I was tracked, she went and did a mile. Because she was able to see like how she was doing. So finding different ways to gamify it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, fitness is just, it's a big thing in our family, and we all do it and we all enjoy it. Right now it's basketball, but summertime we're out there.
That's good. If everyone thought that way, I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah. All right. So back to military. You're maybe a captain.
So I'm a captain. I'm in Korea. I took command of a mechanized infantry company out there in the 7th Infantry Division. And it was during the time, it was, I think it was 1988 during the Summer Olympics in Seoul, South Korea.
You were right there.
And my company was the company that was the patrol company in the DMZ between North and South Korea. So we would do 3 daytime recon patrols to determine where we're going to do our 3 night ambush setups. And this was the closest thing to combat in the Army at the time, because the Iraq hadn't happened yet.
Right.
And the government war on terror was nothing, none of this was happening. So the only people that had rounds locked and loaded was us up there in the DMZ.
Hey.
And so it was really tense.
Took your job serious because there was a threat of.
Oh, absolutely.
Because did anything ever actually happen?
So the closest thing that happened was that there was a demonstration from the north. And of course, it's all military age men in civilian clothes.
Yeah.
and they were just protesting. They came down to Freedom Village. There's a big group of
Protesting.
well, they because North Korea wanted to host some of the games.
Then why would the world want that?
I don't know, but it was just back then that it was. But that was about it. That was about as exciting as it got.
Yeah.
And there was, have you ever been to Korea? Have you heard about it? So they have loudspeakers, but with propaganda, they'll be playing music, and they'll have some. Yeah, actually talking to the Americans, as well as they have it all on the border talking to the South.
They're also just having speakers pointed out.
Oh yeah, they're playing music and they're talking. And
how close are there cities right next to the border, or is it a pretty open like space between?
Well,
is it a fence?
So there is a fence kind of in the middle. There's also mines out there. And the American sector of the DMZ is a narrow sector.
Why is America there in the DMZ?
Well, so to keep, well, some people think it's to keep South Korea from attacking North Korea, and other people say it's to keep from North Korea from attacking South Korea. So there's Highway 1 goes from Seoul north to Pyongyang, I don't know, somewhere up there, but it's the main north-south highway. And so that's where the American sector of the DMZ is. There's a couple of guard posts there. They're occupied.
You have to have a pretty good relationship with the South Korean. Like, do you guys do joint military exercise with them?
All the time. And
you have a pretty good relationship with them.
So, and every platoon has what you call a ROK soldier, Republic of Korea soldier. I think it was a Katusa is what the name was, like a Korean augmentation to the U.S. Army or something like that. And it was an interpreter, because we would do annual, semi-annual exercises with the ROKs. The ROK
at the time, would you say the South Koreans were pretty fit and pretty disciplined?
Oh heck yeah, they were ready. I mean, there's always events and incidents that happened along the border, and their military was ready to go. They were not fooling around.
Yeah, I mean, I used to travel a lot around Asia, and I remember seeing those soldiers, and it seemed like you didn't want to mess with those guys.
Yeah,
they have like America has its discipline, but then other countries, their discipline is a whole other level. And you're just like, oh, that's what the body's capable of.
Yeah,
if you're willing to put yourself under that kind of stress.
Yeah.
So I just got that feeling from guys like that.
Yeah. Well, they had a real threat too. So it's a little bit different, because I mean so the older people. So because we go, and so when we're on an exercise, we stop we take our APC, our personnel carrier, and we'd stop somewhere, and it'd be in the wintertime on a frozen rice paddy, right? That's not being used. And then the elderly farmer would always come out, not always, but a lot of times come out trying to find who's in charge, and kind of bring some wine, the rice wine out there, and try to. Oh no, that's horrible.
You never acquired a taste for it?
No, well, I didn't. No, that was like, beer was fine. I'm trying to remember the name of soju.
Yeah,
is what it was called, and it was a toxic blend of something that it's like you'd have a little bit, and then at some point it trigger you into like insane. Oh,
you guys tell your guys they don't take it.
No, they would, but we'd be bailing guys out of the bars or whatever, and it's like it was really bad sometimes. But the farmer would come over to us, and he would like thank us for being there, because he lived through the Korean War, and he remembers how the U.S. Army helped save Korea. And so there's a lot of gratitude from in Seoul. They had students protesting back then in the 80s. Just the occupation of America, and just the same kind of crap you see now and here. So, but when you got to the country, the people, the Korean people were people like everywhere. They just want to be left alone. They want to have a good time. They want to enjoy life, and they didn't have a mean spirit at all. And they were very grateful to the United States Army for doing what we'd done.
And we still have a force over there, right?
Oh yeah.
You've been replaced, obviously. So how long were you in South Korea?
So that was about a little over a year and a half.
Okay, so it wasn't, they don't try to keep people over there too long.
Well, no, it's a shortened tour. You do a year of command, and like I said, I was in the battalion staff for a little while before that.
So during this time, did you ever date or have girlfriends, or were you the military was your girlfriend? They didn't issue you a girlfriend?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd go out, but no steady girlfriend now.
Okay. What's the joke? If the military didn't issue it, you don't need it.
Yeah.
So they didn't issue you a wife. Okay, so your time in South Korea, then what? How old are you at this time, dude?
So that was like in 1988. I think in 89, I transitioned. And because it was a short tour, most tours are like 3 years. And so it was a short tour, my year group, so that every officer class has a year group. And there's people at the Department of the Army that help your career path. Well, I was a short tour. They didn't know what to do with me.
So I want to get your, maybe you don't remember, but at the time, were you still bitter about not becoming a pilot or AD?
Nope, long over that.
You're over that.
I love being in the Army, in the infantry. So where I got bitter was I tried to go to Fort Bragg to be in a PSYOPs battalion in the special operations group over there.
Was Saw come around then?
Yeah. And so I communicated with a few people there, and they said, yeah, we'll take you. And it's like, I want to go. And so I talked to the Department of the Army and some of the representatives that are trying to manage my file. And it's like, well, we're just not set up to get you there. I go, what do you mean? They want me. I want to go. What's hard about this? What's so hard about it?
Parties want what they want, but then to get there, you're like,
exactly.
Figure it out.
And I just didn't know enough people to pull strings or to make it happen.
Grease the wheels.
And so I said, well, what are my options? They go, well, you can either go to like an ROTC position and be the cadre for an Army ROTC unit at some college, or you can go into the recruiting command. And it's like neither one of those sound very attractive.
Yeah.
And
did you at the time want to do your 20 years?
At the time, yeah. So I ended up choosing recruiting command over in Yakima because it was close to home. And it was a second command. So like
03 at the time, right? Captain?
Yeah. So having a second command as a captain is like really difficult to do, but really helpful if you want to get promoted to the next rank and position. So being in a command position versus an ROTC position to me just looked a lot more attractive, better opportunity, and this is going to help me continue to get promoted in the Army. And it turns out it was a really bad time to be in the recruiting command, and it was a really bad battalion, the Seattle battalion. You don't know that stuff. And I was the youngest commander. There were 6 commanders. The other 5 were all like on the captain promotable list to major.
Yeah.
And so they were just doing what they needed to pass time, but the battalion commander was not doing well. And we had an old school sergeant.
Born from military.
And he was in the recruiting command a long time, but he would, when he showed up, there was E5s and E6s and E7s at the recruiting station. And when they weren't doing their job, he was old school. He would yell at them, tell them how much of a piece of shit they are, that they need to get on the phone and do a better job.
Right.
And so he'd leave, and these dudes were just literally almost in tears, expected to get on the phone, talk to 17 and 18-year-old men and women and say how great the Army is.
Right.
That happened one time with me. The one time. And I said, Sergeant Major, from now on, I'm going to go with you when you tour my company, and I don't want to see that kind of behavior anymore. My God.
Because there's friction.
You should have seen the sparks.
Yeah.
It was like a lightning bolt. He's God. This is God. I just told God that he cannot do that anymore. Now, all the other company commanders are going, dude, you got the biggest balls we've ever seen. No one's ever done that. No one's ever said that to this guy.
Yeah.
But he was like kept running the battalion because the battalion commander
Yeah.
was just not effective.
And that's part of the danger within the military is sometimes you have people in power because they say absolute power corrupts, right? No matter what organization, it just does. So you have people need to be there to keep someone in check. But when no one ever keeps that guy in check, that's where, in any organization, but even more so in the military, it's like, if someone's acting out of line, but that guy has absolute power, what are you supposed to do? Who's his boss?
Yeah.
And I think that's very common in the military, because military will have really great leaders, then you have the really bad ones, and it's hard to get rid of the bad.
It's really hard. So yeah, it was a odd situation, and yeah, maybe I wasn't the best recruiting company commander. I thought I was doing okay. At that time, the public
They have the same, like, do they have quotas based on population?
well,
Would they have the same demand for you that some other state or area may have, like 3 times the population?
I don't know at that level. I just know that within the battalion, they had a quota, and then that'd be divided up between the 6 companies, and then that'd be divided up there. I think there's 7 recruiting stations, and we divide that up. And so you had, in a bigger station, you had brand new people, you had people who had been there a while, and just like everything else, some were really good, some were not so good. And the quota that we were operating at was a pretty demanding quota.
Yeah, I heard it was.
I don't remember what it was. However, during that time, there was on the news, it was being publicly stated that the Army was going to be cutting back on the recruiting. But it hadn't caught up to us yet.
That's all I get.
Right? So it got to the point where, so out of the 7 recruiting stations, maybe let's say 4 of them were doing well for that month and 3 weren't. And instead of me dealing with it, my boss said, since one station is not meeting it, it's like, everyone's going to work on Saturday because one. So it's like, well, they're micromanaging instead of letting me handle it. And I go, it's like, well, why do you need me? It's like, I am not a yes man. Okay. So this is not right. This is not fair. This is not effective. So why are we doing this? Like, that's just what we're going to do. Okay. So that was the ineffective battalion commander who left for medical reasons.
Yeah.
Battalion command 05 wants to get promoted. I think his career just ended.
Yeah.
The command sergeant major is really running things, probably telling him to say those things, telling him that we should all be working on a Saturday. So the deputy brigade commander came in, and there wasn't much change. And so at that point, it's like, if you want a yes man, then you need someone different than me. I think I'll just fade away.
Yeah.
And that's why I exited the military.
That's so sad, because that's a common story where good guys who are willing to do 20 years will get sidelined because of poor leadership somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you get caught up in the bureaucracy. Because if you don't have a real enemy, like once we probably went to war, that was a real enemy. So then people were willing to put aside the little petty differences. But when you have no real enemy, and the enemy's your own leadership, then good guys get sidelined all the time.
And what's ironic about this, and this was in like late 88
right
to the beginning of 89, and in 1990 was the first Iraq war.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
had you stuck around, but again, you don't know what the future had
right.
play, because maybe had you stuck around an extra year, things would have turned, and then off to a whole different thing. So how long had you spent in the military?
So I did 7 years.
7 years. So when you got out, what was that? Was there fear? Do you know what you're going to do? Or are you just kind of like, I'm getting out because this is so toxic. Anything's better than what I'm doing now.
So yeah, toxic a little bit. I felt like I didn't want to be in a large organization. So I had my degree was in aerospace engineering, and I had no desire to work for Boeing. So I ended up being I got in real estate where I could work for myself as a real estate agent.
Oh, funny.
And that lasted about 2.5 years, and it only put me in debt. I just did not do well, even though it was sales. But once again, it was that time frame where in 1990, the Puget Sound market, real estate market peaked, and was in full decline right when I started. And so it was like the most inopportune time to start.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just tried to hang on and just dig in and do it. The only good part about that was that a real estate agent friend of mine, there was like he and his buddy and a bunch of us. There were 6 of us that went down to Cancun, Mexico for vacation, and one of them was a firefighter. And so that's why I talked with him. He says, yeah, it's like, I'm going to go after this. I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm going to ride there on my Harley. And it's like, he's talking about all these fun, active things he's doing. I was like, well, what do you do? What's the fire? I had no clue about the fire department, like zero.
Yeah.
No family members. I didn't know anybody. And then it just sounded like he's having a lot of fun in life. And then it's like, so what do you actually do? And he's like, well, it's like you serve the community, you help people, you get called out to these emergencies and fires.
Hey.
Well, not many people die in the fire department. So, but it's like, I mean, yeah, there's risk, but it's just like the military. I mean, there's a lot of risk in the military, but it's probably one of the safest organizations there is.
Right. As they try to think of everything.
Yeah. And so that interested me. And so as soon as I came back, I started looking up the different areas where they're testing for entry-level firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a couple. I did really well in Everett. And this was in 1993.
You think interviews or what?
So you had to take a written test,
mm-hmm.
and then you do there's an interview panel, I guess, where they ask you like 10 questions, and then you'd be ranked.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, I think,
early 90s.
So this was in 1990, must have been 92 or 93. Could
This is late 30s?
This is my late 30s.
Late 30s?
No, this is early. Let me think. No, early 30s, right. Yeah. So like 32 or 33. And so I did really well on the Everett test. I think I was like number 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure your military background and discipline, all that.
Yeah, I mean, just it all helped. I was in really good shape. I went to the gym like all the time as a realtor because I went to Bally's right there in South Bellevue, and I found I got a hardcore group that I worked out with, and it was like we were like really into fitness.
Yeah. Was that a thing back then for people? Because I feel like, again, I wasn't around back then, but like there a period where like fitness was just for a small minority of people, like actual going to the gym, or would you say, no, fitness wasn't important today as it was back then? Obviously, you have a military background, but I'm just talking about the overall.
Not many people in my real estate office went to the gym.
Okay.
Me, it was just, that's just what I do.
Yeah.
I went during lunch because I want to get charged up for the rest of the day. So I'd go during lunch.
Now there's people are realizing like, hey, if you're at peak physical condition, that's going to help your mental or business. So now they're really making a push, like, thing that you would say that, it's common sense. Like, obviously, if you exercise, you're going to be at optimal levels in other areas.
Yeah.
To us, that's common sense, but now it's like breaking science. If you work out, you're going to do better in these other areas. And it's like, well, no, duh. So yeah, it's just funny.
Well, and it was convenient that it's convenient that a gym is close to you, like, when Mill Creek's close here. And that was just right down. It was a mile from the office there in South Bellevue. So I went at least 3 times a week, maybe, and a weekend too. So
he still did cardio as well. Like,
yeah, well, we had it. I would do the aerobics class there because there was a guy that he was like the god of aerobics, and his name was they call him Papa John. And
still around?
I don't know if he's around anymore, but he ran all the aerobic
This is part of Bally's.
at Bally's. He was like the dude in charge, but he was just gifted, man. He would just go, and this class was like this. We should have been like in a movie or something, because it was just,
You think fondly of this.
it was like competitive aerobic, because we would go hard for an hour.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really hard, like, getting the knees up high and just like a lot of moves. It was, you were worn out at the end, but we were all good.
Yeah.
There were like a core of about 10 or 12 of us that they would hang out afterwards or hang out on the weekends. And
That's funny.
it was
I
awesome.
don't know if that's, I think maybe like some of the girls like doing that from sport, but I don't know if guys do that.
There's both guys and girls, but
Yeah.
we were all in.
That's
It was good. Plus I do just regular lifting just on the other days. And
Yeah, one thing as I talk to people now or young people, and it's like, if you can stack, like, I think people at this point in life can acknowledge that exercise is good. They may not like it, right? A lot of people don't like it, but it's like, but if you can stack it with other things that are good for you, like socialization, things like that, then I think you're more up to do it. Like, I'm going to work out I haven't had a workout partner in years, but I'm still going to do it because I don't need that. But I realize most people, they need some kind of camaraderie. Like, I think that's why CrossFit did so well, because it's like, oh, I get to do it with these people. Like, my buddy discovered CrossFit last year. Guess what he talks about all the time?
yeah,
He posted on Facebook, I will continue posting about CrossFit. If you do not want to see these posts, then please unfriend me, because he loves it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, obviously the fitness is great. He had a body transformation, but then just the camaraderie of other people, having fun, stuff like that. So it's like, okay, if you can acknowledge the exercise is good, try to stack it with other things that are beneficial. Having a core group of people you do it with.
yeah. You have to find what works for you. That's the key.
Yeah.
Because back then that really worked, and it was great, because we had the camaraderie, and it was a very high level of fitness, which is that's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So that worked out great, because like now, I mean, I don't need that camaraderie. I've got enough mental grit and toughness and determination. I'm going to do it regardless. I may have felt that way back then. I just don't recall how I felt, but I just somehow fell into that group that they were just high level. Let's go. Let's
Still
just
friends
do
with
it.
any of those guys? They're still around?
Not really.
Yeah.
That was
I look at
a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they are today in life.
Yeah.
So you found out about being a firefighter. You tested.
So I tested once, well, the first time, and it was the economy was, they had a hiring freeze. So I was really good on the list. They needed people to hire, but there was a hiring freeze in the city. So in that time, the list was only good for a year. So I had to go back, redo everything. And I want to say there was,
This is all while you're trying to become a real estate agent.
well, I was still, at that time I was working at Microsoft in the packaging facility, just like
Yeah.
working ridiculous, like 78 hours a week, because I was in debt and needed money. So I was working a lot. Just it's something I could do,
Debt. What? So why did you get in so much debt?
because I was living beyond my means in real estate. Not a good thing to do.
Meaning, were you having expenses in real estate, hoping if you got deals, they would pay off?
Yeah. You'd have a deal that would be so close to working, and then the last minute fall through for some reason. It's like, oh, that's a couple $1,000s I just didn't get.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was tough.
Tough business for sure. I don't know how accurate it is, but they say 10% of the agents make 90% of the money, while the other 90% are fighting over the 10%.
Probably. That's probably really accurate.
And so, and those big brokerages, Keller or whatever, Windermere, they just know, like, hey, 90% of people probably won't be here in the next few years, so let them cycle through, and it's just how the business works.
Yeah.
So working on doing Microsoft packaging, what was that?
That's in Bothell. that division no longer exists with Microsoft. It was packaging the mouse, and other software came in packages because it was on a CD-ROM at the time, and it wasn't electronic and digital.
What were your thoughts about when that stuff was coming out? Computers, did you think like it's probably been big someday, or you're just like whatever?
It was all kind of new. I mean, so back at the academy, we had access to computers, but it was the old school where you had to, like with Fortran, you type in some code. You have to write your own code for an equation, and then you submit it, and the computer was in a whole nother building, and it was timeshare. So you'd get like 5 seconds, it would run your stuff, and then you'd have to wait 3 or 4 minutes, and it'd get back to your stuff and run it for five more seconds. And just God help you if it was the night before it was due. It was horrible. It was just god awful ridiculous.
However, like, hey, this page took 2 seconds to learn about it in half a second.
Yeah, but I was aware of it, and I did it. I didn't recognize how much of an impact it would have over my life or all our lives. So, but I had a cell phone in the as a real estate agent. We had one of the big bricks. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, it's kind of like AI, right? It's like usually with technology, we don't even know how ubiquitous it will become. We just know it's here.
Yeah.
Just like, with computers, some people are like, people thought it was crazy Jeff Bezos was going to sell books online. But now it's like, why would you like this? Now it's like, of course that makes sense. But back then it's like, you're gonna tell me I'm gonna go on some little computer and buy something, and now it's like you're telling me you want me to go to a store and buy something. For in 10 years, it's like you're telling me you used to have to buy stuff. Now I just think about it. It's like crazy because we don't know. We know it's going to have a play. We just don't know exactly with AI. Apple just came out with Vision Pro. So I was listening to, there's a podcast. There's like 2 billionaires on it. Another guy that's super rich and another guy that tries to like keep the conversation moving. And so they're talking about like, okay, what is the Vision Pro going to do? Like when iPads first came out, they were cool, but like people were like, well, it's not a computer, it's not a phone. But now it's like everyone has one. And so they're trying to think of a use case for the Vision Pro. And so one guy who has a business was like, well, my workers could use it. And because it has all those cameras, something that takes this worker all this time to process, you put that on and it will process all that information for you. And so they're just trying to think of use case of how Vision Pro or if you're a firefighter or whatever, you put that on and now you can envision being in that situation and how you think through. So a lot of useful use cases, just how long would it take to get there?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of, I call it trial and success.
Yeah.
So trial and error. You're gonna try this out until you find something that it really works well for.
Yeah, I mean, back when I was in the military, you'd go to a gun range, but then they had it set up where you would go into a room and you put this on and you act, the gun was realistic, the dog, but you were just in a basic room. And that was a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that stuff's been out. It's just, I think, so costly that didn't become mainstream to do that. Or I think the Vision Pro now is making it a lot more realistic.
And what's even more interesting is that AI consumes an enormous amount of power.
Yeah.
So much so that we're considering building more coal plants.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. All right. So there was a hiring freeze. I think so for the listener, I think this is an important lesson. It's like society goes through cycles and you just know that, okay, there's good times, there's bad times, and then there's in between times. And so you're in a time that was bad, but you know that's not going to last forever.
Well, I was determined also.
Yeah.
So I was encouraged that I did so well at placing my, behind the list. I was talking with someone at HR in Everett that says, yeah, we're going to need a bunch. We're going to need lots of people. And so I retested. I scored well again. I think I was number 4 again on this second list. And I finally got a call. This was in about September of 94, and says, yeah, we're going to hire like 16 or 17 people.
Mhm.
And I was number 4.
Nice. There are a lot of applicants.
I want to say it seems like there is like over 1,000 people that
Yeah.
either signed up to take the written test or actually took the written test. And then they take like the top 100 or so and put them through the interview process. So you had to score well on the written test, like really well, like 95 or
So was the written test back then? So I've actually taken a test. I remember. So it's maybe at the end we'll recap how I have similar things that you went through, which is funny. But I remember I was like, all right, if I'm going to go take this test, I should prepare for it. And so I got these books where it was like, you have to memorize geography. You have to memorize a layout. You have to memorize all this stuff. And then, I think the way I remember is the actual test was they gave you an hour or two to study all this material, all these different graphs, building layouts. And then they take the material away and then they give you the test and it's like, what street was this house on? And you're like, I don't know. Is that a similar test or is it different?
that sounds like a police officer test, but
That was a firefighter test.
yeah, that was different from what I had.
Okay, so what was your test?
Well, it was a lot of general knowledge, some was specific knowledge. However, there were preparation manuals. And if you found the right one, right, if you talk with the guys that were already there, and that's my recommendation, like if you want to find out how to get hired, you talk to the people who most recently got hired. Don't talk to me. I got hired 30 years ago. But the guys that got hired recently know exactly what to study, exactly how to prepare, because they did it successfully. And so I talked with some of those, and I found the manual, the right manual is like, hey, I recognize that question. That exact question was on the test.
Yeah.
Isn't that
I think
interesting?
there's a good life hack there. If you really want something in life, go find someone else that's done it
Exactly.
and just go learn from that.
And so I tell every person that comes in, it says like, I can do some general stuff, but if you really want to know, go talk to that new recruit that just got hired and just got started.
Yeah. Good. So you got selected, then what?
Got started in October of '94 and went through the back there we had the Fire Training Academy at North Bend. And I started in January of 1991. And this is a long time ago too, but it was the Pang fire in Seattle was a big fire where four Seattle firefighters died. That was my first shift.
Wow.
And we knew about it because the driver at the time had some kind of a scanner on and he was listening to what was going on in Seattle. So we knew about that there was problems at that fire in Seattle before it showed up on the news. And they were like, well, we should turn the news on. They turned the news on. I was like, yeah, there's a really big fire going on. And there was a collapse and got some unaccounted for firefighters. Yeah, that was kind of a unique day.
Your first day, you're like, well, okay.
Yeah.
So, what was that like initially when you got in and being a firefighter? And did you enjoy it? Does being a firefighter, and we'll get to paramedic, does it have similar traits of prior military that
Absolutely.
camaraderie? So
It was a lot of camaraderie.
you missed that when you were a civilian?
Maybe a little bit. Like I had it at the gym I was at. So like when I was going to Bally's, I was still going to Bally's even when I was working ridiculous amounts of overtime and at Microsoft. And so, yeah, there was instant camaraderie. And
Microsoft's.
No,
That's what you didn't even do.
I was, so when I got the offer, I was interviewing to become a manager at that facility. So I was in a position to promote and then maybe, investigate things more. It was like I was not in a position to buy stock. I just wanted to get out of debt. And but I got the call and I was like, yeah, this sounds like fun. So and because there were 17 of us, so I had a large group because sometimes we'll just send 2 people in the last over the years, 2 or 3 people per year. That's all we'd hire, not many. So they don't have the camaraderie that I had because we didn't hire anyone the previous year. They were people retiring. So we had one of the largest groups in years at 17 people. So it was a lot of camaraderie. It was very special. It was a lot of fun.
It's probably easy for you because you were used to training like that.
It was easy. It was, for me, it was pretty easy.
I'm sure guys that never been in the military would find that difficult. Was there like yelling and hazing and stuff back then, or was it more respectful? Like,
well, I wouldn't call it hazing, but there was yelling and.
But for you, it's like, bro.
Yeah, this was a walk. This was pretty darn easy, relative to just. It was all overall pretty easy.
Yeah, based off of your military experience, that's nothing.
Yeah,
like a civilian going to that could have been probably pretty tough. Like, this guy's yelling at me, and you're
there was a couple other guys in the military, but most of them were civilian. But these were pretty physical, smart dudes.
Yeah, and if you want to be there, then
they're almost all bigger than me, and so they could do the fitness. They were all fit, and it was like there was no one that was not fit.
As the firefighting, the physical test, has that changed over the years? Because I took that test, I don't know, like 10 years ago, and I was like, challenging but doable.
So at the time, Everett had the most physically demanding physical test there was.
Good. You want a high standard.
It was the highest standard, and we fought for years to keep that.
What was the standard? Run 2 miles backwards with the...
No, it was worse. We had a tire that was full of cement.
Oh.
And you had a rope, and you had to pull it one way, like 150 feet on the asphalt, turn around and pull it back. And I think you had to do it under a minute.
That was there must have been other things.
Well, that was the first one. We called that the tire pull. And I don't think any women passed.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult for a girl on the tire, like just a...
Because the tire itself must have weighed...
And that's
125 pounds. This is like pulling hose, stretching hose on a fire ground. I mean, there was many times where that happened.
Right. Or a human being.
Because we're doing a 5-inch hose, and as you get further and further away, it's just a ridiculous amount of torque and strength that's needed to do that. And so that's what that replicated. And then we had a ladder, so a simulated ladder. They had to pick up, put on the rack, and put it back down, and we hang fans on the door, take up this fan and hook it up there, and then put it back down. And these were not light. I mean, our ladders, I don't know exactly what they weigh, but they're not light. And so this was a small ladder. It was weighted to be like a large ladder. And once again, it took a lot of upper body strength to do that. If you were taller, it was easier. But then that's where you go and practice, and you learn the technique. If you could master the technique, it didn't matter what your size was. But then you had to have strength too.
Right.
That was another event. And there was it was just this odd thing. I don't remember what it was called, but it was it had a rope on a pulley, and you had to pull rope to simulate pulling, like, so if we're on a second or third floor, you throw a rope over there, over the edge, and you have to pull up hose or pull up equipment. And so this rope pulley kind of simulated that, and you had to pull some ridiculous length at like 280 feet in a certain amount of time. And once again, it was technique.
Yeah. And this was at the school that you had to do that?
Well, we had a drill field, and the firefighters would put that on. They would help you practice. And
did you have to do that on a regular, like, annual basis?
No, it was just entry level.
Okay.
And the last part was taking 100 feet of hose, going up, I think, to the 5th or 6th floor in the drill tower, and then coming back down, and that was timed. You had to do that in, I don't know, a minute or something, some ridiculous fast time.
Yeah.
So you're running up the stairs.
And I'm assuming you're in full gear.
I don't think for the entry level, that wasn't in gear. That was just show up and just...
Can you do these things?
100 feet of hose, which I think it might have been, I can't remember, it was 1 3/4 inches. Yeah, it was probably 1 3/4 inches.
So what's the test today, in case someone is interested?
I'm not sure. It's a standard test where you have to do. I think like it's definitely not as demanding. I don't know what it is, but it's a standard.
You could pass it right now.
I could smoke it.
All right. So you make it through the class, probably no problems. And then, so I'm curious, maybe it's changed over the years. Does each city or county all go to the same school together?
To the training academy type. So at the time, yes. So the fire training academy, there was probably 10 to 12 different jurisdictions that had firefighters there.
Mm-hmm. So is each city, so today, let's talk about today. So it's not run by the counties, it's run by each individual city.
So that was, the fire training academy was a state academy. And so there was people from all over the state that would show up. So now that doesn't function that way now. Okay. So Seattle has its own and had its own back then, their own, because they're a large enough jurisdiction that they have their own training academy. Now Everett participates with Snohomish County, and there's a Snohomish County training academy.
A couple times.
And I think it's twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. I think it's twice a year. And so that's how we do it now. So we send our recruits there. We send some staff members. Each jurisdiction that sends recruits there will send staff members. I think for continuity, there's 1 or 2 people that are in charge of it, and everything's written out, and so the new cadre gets there and follows the script. Everyone goes through. It's a pretty well organized, standardized.
That course.
I'm not sure. I want to say 16 weeks, maybe.
That's pretty.
And there's pre-academy work and there's post-academy work. It seems like it's a little bit, it's long.
Yeah. I guess, if you're going to invest that much time and effort into something, you want to make sure that they know what they're doing, and
right.
They go back and they're ready to roll. So what was those early years like being were you trained as an EMT back then, or were you just?
I was not an EMT when I got hired. They sent me to EMT school, and we still do that. So if you're an EMT, that's great. If not, the department will send you to EMT school. So I went through EMT school, did well in that.
EMT basic, right?
Correct. And then, because that's the minimum standard for all firefighters is EMT basic.
Mm-hmm. Also, every firefighter in this area needs to be EMT.
EMT basic, yes.
Okay.
And then in Everett, the requirement was to have 3 years experience before considering going to Harborview Medical Center for paramedic training. And
in that process of becoming a paramedic, isn't there an I as well?
A what?
Is there a EMT I?
Is there intermediate? Yeah. So there is. It's like an airway IV technician.
Okay.
And so then EMTP, paramedic is the full
but it
deal.
They don't really have you go after I. You're just going to go from B to P.
Yeah. So we go from basic to paramedic. Yeah.
Okay.
And so
how was that course like 6 months?
So you leave in like September. So it's about a year. And you get back maybe in August.
So that's dedication, because you're taking that person off the line from doing their job, and now you're paying that person.
Yeah, I lived in Seattle. The department had an apartment that was right there, walking distance from Harborview, and that was your full-time job. Because like from the very beginning, you were doing ride-alongs with the medic unit there in Seattle and going on calls. And so you start out observing, you would end up running it with a doctor evaluating you to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Do you remember what your starting pay was back then? Rough, like how much you think you would have made that year? 30, 40,000?
Probably more than that. I'm sure I made this. So back in, I got hired in 94. I went to medic school in 98. I got done in 99. I'm sure I was making, I don't know, 60 to 80,000. Yeah, we were getting paid well.
So for the listener, it's a good opportunity to make good money and help people.
Yeah.
So any crazy stories back then come to mind?
There's always crazy stories.
Well, let's hear some. Did you enjoy being a firefighter, or you prefer being a paramedic?
It's all fun. I mean, now as I get older, I don't really care about being on fires.
It's just very physically demanding.
It's physically demanding,
It's game.
and it's like I just yeah, it's kind of a young person's sport to be on the nozzle
Yeah.
in on a fire. But also, I, so another paid position is being the driver of fire engine. So I was on that list and I did that job for 6 months.
So is that a course you go to as well?
We have an academy to do that. Just so driver's academy. That's within the
So what's the,
department.
I guess, tips and tricks they teach you guys there? Like, not run over.
Well, so a lot of it's on how to operate the pump to make sure you get the right amount of water to each line. How to draft,
So do you guys, because I was trying to explain this to my kids, because it's like, at a stoplight, do you guys have a little button that can change the color?
So it's not a button, but it's a strobe light. So when we're running with the lights and the siren, there's a strobe, and every intersection has a receptor
Yeah.
that, with the right frequency, it does trip the lights.
Yeah, because I was always like, how do they? So you, the driver, no one has to do anything. It just senses.
So when we're running code with the light, when the lights are on, the strobe is on, and if we hit the sensor correctly, it should trip the lights, but it takes a little time.
Yeah, because sometimes you're like, why hasn't it changed yet? And then you're like, so I was always curious how that worked.
Yeah.
So a civilian could try to go find that. I'm sure it's hard to buy that off the street, but you could try to go find that, I guess.
You could. It's not legal.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So, early days, you're enjoying it. At that time, you weren't married yet. So that's something you were interested in trying to do.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it was. So it wasn't until so I I love country music, learned a country dance, and going back to like I tell you, I felt like my father left me. So it wasn't until I read a book called "Are You the One for Me" by Barbara DeAngelis, and it's written for like an engineer because it's all the crap that can happen in a relationship, and then here's what you want to happen.
Yeah.
That you want in a relationship. So I was reading that because I was like had a girlfriend, but didn't work out, and then
What inspired you to read that book?
what's that?
What inspired you to read the book?
Well, it's like I wanted to have a family and be a dad.
Did you read in general?
Yes,
Okay, so you were just an avid reader.
I was like an avid reader, but I read.
The reason why I ask is the average person today in America doesn't read.
Yeah,
I think they say they read one book a year.
yeah,
Like my buddy, I won't say his name because he listens, but he maybe reads one book a year.
yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's a problem. Like, how are you ever supposed to? I'm trying to like help him be like, dude, like if you want to expand your knowledge and just know and learn, like your limited experience in life is very limited. How do you gain other experience and knowledge? By learning from other people. And so if you don't read, and if you're just hanging out in your mom's basement all day, like you're gonna have a very small experience in life. So I think it's a valuable lesson is go read books.
And this book made a monumental difference in my life because when I read that, so I'm reading Are You the One for Me? When I got down to the part that talked about abandonment,
Yeah.
okay, I read that, I'm going, that's me.
Yeah.
And I physically felt relief.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was it. That's I'm acting as if like, so if I'm with dating someone and they want to go on a trip with their friends, like, well, I want to go. Don't leave me.
Yeah.
Don't abandon me.
Yeah.
And I just get all like worked up and like, and they'd go like, what's up with you? Like, right. And then I go, oh, that's me. So as soon as I recognized that in myself, it was literally, and then it was like 6 months later, I met my wife.
Have you ever been into have you ever gone to counseling or anything like that?
Not during that time, no.
So
I only went because so my wife and I went because we just had some challenges with my son. That's, we can talk more about that. But so that was the only time I've been to a professional camp.
the reason I ask is reading books can be self-counseling.
Absolutely.
Because now it's like they're putting a big emphasis on mental health, right? Which is good. But you don't always have to go to a counselor as long as I'm not saying don't, but if you are getting input from experts by reading their stuff, you can almost self-counsel yourself, depending on what the issue is. Like, there's big T trauma, little T trauma. If it's little T trauma, you probably don't need an expert. Just go read so you have a better perspective. Big T trauma, and then maybe it's like, all right, you should probably go see someone. Like, it's hard to deal with a death or something significant just on your own by reading a book. Sometimes you need something to talk you through it.
Well, if you're motivated, if you're looking for a change, and I've been doing some personal development throughout that time.
What did that look like?
So I worked with a organization called Warrior Spirit, and we did full contact street defense that helped people break through their fear. And so I had a friend of mine who was involved in that, and I went through the course as a student, and it was great, very physically demanding. And then it's like I signed up to be a staff member, and I did that for like 7-8 years. The antagonist is called Ebotha. Okay. And we had a football helmet with like 6 inches of padding. So this great big, huge black helmet, black shoulder pads, padding all around, a huge crotch pad, knee pads, so that the student, it was basic street defense. So it was kicking, like full contact kick.
Is this still a thing?
Well, not anymore, but the student could kick us as hard as they want. And we were trained on how to take it. So, I mean, there was big guys that could kick hard. It still hurt, but because we were trained, we knew how to take the hit, as well as doing elbows to the head.
It's not sound like a good time again.
Well, but it's good for the student. It's really good because we teach them to grab the person's shirt, and then if you're in that kind of ready position, grab the shirt and knee to the crotch, and this is full contact as hard as you could do it. So we'd have old ladies, young ladies, fit ladies, not fit ladies, strong guys, not strong. We did the full spectrum, but it wasn't the physical interaction. It was like take action, right? So whatever fear you have, however you manifest that, it's like, we're going to make it physical. It's going to be in front of you and you need to deal with it. And people, it would like the emotional release was more significant than the physical release.
So
it was really awesome.
It's cool that you're into personal development, because that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately as well, for myself, and then how to get other people interested in it. Tony Robbins was probably back then. He is obviously today.
Yeah.
Was he someone you
absolutely
were back then as well?
Yeah.
Had you ever gotten any of his stuff? Or
I did not go to any of his trainings, but I've been to other trainings and just been a student of self-improvement and even personal development, I guess is the right term.
Did you say your peers were into that, or that was just something that was always part of you and in you?
Well, some of the people I hung around with were, because like they'd be like staff members with Jeff Alexander was the guy who ran it, and he was just a gifted individual who knew how to just bring out to help people get through their fear.
Yeah. So let's sit on this topic for a second, because I think about personal development a lot, because I'm all about it, but I'm finding a lot of people aren't. And so it's like, how do we get those people to get interested about it, or do you not? Do you just be like, hey, you're gonna have to figure it out? So I heard this story the other day. Do you know who Patrick Bet-David is?
No.
So he has a podcast, wealthy dude, and I like to listen to him a lot. But so someone asked him a question and like, well, what are your thoughts on Gen Z? And he's like, he had a little smirk, and then he's like, well, change is going to happen. And it happens in 3 ways. 1, it's deliberate. It's something that you know that you want to change something, so you're going to take action. 2, it's accidental. A friend says, hey, I just went to this restaurant, or hey, I just bought this mug. Maybe you like it. So it's accidental. You changed because you weren't trying to, but you came across something that made you interested in it. 3 is forced. Force is the hardest for people because that's someone does something to you that you weren't expecting. You got fired, or military is really good with forced change. But those are the people who have the hardest with change. And so that struck a chord with me because it's like, change is going to happen. You hear the joke, like, 2 things you can rely on in America is death and taxes, right? But the third is change. Change is going to happen. All personal development is saying is, I want to have a role in that change because I know it's going to happen. And so that really resonated with me. So it's like, all right, if I want to start helping young adults and let them know, when you're young, you feel like you know everything, you don't need help, I'll figure it out. It's like, sure, but it is worthwhile learning from other people. It is worthwhile. So I don't know why it just really struck with me because it's like, change is going to happen. You just have to decide if you want to have a part in that or not. And so I don't know what your thoughts are on that, or, well, what do you do with the people that are maybe don't value personal development or don't, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I haven't been asked that before, so that's a good question. I'm not sure I have a good answer. I can only control and influence myself,
Right.
and the people around me I can influence. I can't control anybody,
Right.
especially my kids. Right. So,
Therefore,
and as they got older, it was obvious that the influence was reduced.
so what age, this is for myself, what age did you realize, like, I can't even control this child anymore? Is that early?
Well, I think we never really wanted to control them.
When I say control, it's like,
but it's like
5-year-old, like, you will do these things, or you're no alternative. Well, once they get a little older, it's like,
so
I hope you do these things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so we're not taught to be parents either, right? I mean, there's not a class or a requirement to get a certificate to be a good parent.
Right.
Right.
There should be, but
there should be, because if we did, we'd probably have a much better society. So, obviously the teen years are, to me, they were fun because we were active in sports. I was coaching baseball and softball and soccer because they couldn't find a soccer coach. So it's like, I've never really done soccer, but I'll coach it. And it was like, I did okay. But I think about the 15, 16 is like, where it's like crystal clear, they're their own little adult, because at that they're starting to drive, and once they get that, they're driving, they're really on their own. And if you haven't instilled your values on them, it's like, it's going to be really tough to add it by then. So, like, we used to have a climbing, one of those play sets right here before you have the trampoline. And like, I used to tell them, like, there's a little climbing wall. And I always tell them, I say, okay, when you climb this, I want you to do it steady and deliberate. I use those words often. I want you to do it steady and deliberate. Steady and deliberate. And somehow and this is like when they're like, they're 2 and 3. So they're hearing this, and it just I think it sunk into their subconscious, I think. I mean, I don't know, but steady and deliberate. And because, like, you got to have 3 points of contact on there, okay? And when you're moving up, and they just do it. And then we graduated to this, and oh my God, my kids do flips. They just do incredible things. So sometimes the role of a parent is enormous. And the outcome of the kid a lot of times is a reflection of that. Okay. Not always, because there's always exceptions to every rule.
Guidelines. I like to look at guidelines.
Guidelines are like bumpers.
It's like, well, what if this? And it's like, dude, this is just a general principle. Like,
yeah. So, and then leading by example, like what you're doing with really just running activities, having kids involved in things, making them responsible for things. Like, okay, so it's your homework, you got to get it done. I mean, I was maybe blessed. Like my wife is a full-time mom, and I don't know how I got so lucky with my kids because they're just 4.0 students. They're fit, they're athletic, they're kind.
What sport did your daughter play? Soccer?
Soccer and softball.
What age did you start putting her into sports?
Pretty young.
So I kind of joke. So I've 11, my kids are 11, 9, 7, and 6. And so we're members at the Y. So not only do I pay for LA Fitness, I also pay for the Y. And so the Y, like our boys, they have a game later today, and there'll be little kids playing. And my 6-year-old would like to do it. But in my mind, it's like, when you go play with other 6-year-olds, you're not getting any better.
Well, maybe.
In my mind, because, and here's why. You have older brothers and you have me. We're going to go make you better at whatever thing you're doing. So that's my mindset. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That's just for me, because it's like, A, I'm going to get bored watching you. So B, I would encourage parents to go play with your child.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't think most parents do that. So it's like when my boys were younger, they didn't start the whole like team sports until one was 5th grade, one was 3rd. But before then, it wasn't like they didn't do anything. I was the one that went and played with them.
Yeah.
Right? I was the one that went and did stuff with them. Like, we're going to go to the park. We're going to go kick. We played basketball. Like, right before my kids were on a basketball team, what did I do? I went and played basketball with them. And then we'd play in the neighborhood. We'd play 2-on-2. It was me, my boys, and then this other guy. And so it's like, for me, it was like at a young age, it's like, what's the point? Especially if I'm going to be playing with them. I think some parents would rather, again, no judgment. Some parents would rather just not play with the kid. Let me go take him. Let me go take Billy here so I don't have to.
Yeah.
And I would just say, hey, you can do that, but why don't you just go play with Billy yourself?
Right.
With some kids. You don't need some organized structure.
Or accommodation. Because I taught my kids how to bat. Okay. So right here in the backyard. And what's interesting is that I said, it's like, these kids don't know to bat left or right-handed. They don't know. They've never done it, right? So I'm gonna start them out left-handed.
Yeah, because it's awkward anyways.
Well, it's not. Well, it's not. It's awkward only to someone who hasn't done it.
Right.
But it's more valuable and it's different, right? So you have a left-handed hitter in a lineup. It's like, maybe I'll put you up first or second, or it's a different thing. So I started them. That's from the very first time they held a bat. It's like, you hold it this way, left-handed. They threw right, but they batted left. And they did that their entire baseball, softball career. But I taught them kind of like, I gave them the attention and time, and I did it. Yeah. And then when we got to the organized league, they batted left-handed because I feel like,
but they're right-handed.
But they're right-handed.
Can they bat with their right? Or they just,
well, I think my son and eventually they both kind of tried both ways, but it's like they always reverted back to being left-handed.
So what's funny with your story and mine is I never liked baseball, softball. So I jokingly was like, one of my kids, when I had my first, I was like, I'm just not going to participate in that sport at all. So we chose not to.
Right.
They probably would have been decent at it. Like 2 summers ago, my oldest was like, can we go get some baseballs and bats?
Yeah.
I did. And he was actually pretty good at it. But I was like, sorry, I'm not going to.
I think kids could be good at whatever they do. If they're a little bit athletic, they're going to excel at anything. And it's really like what's going to interest them in. It's like, if I had to do it over again, I think I would have done martial arts more.
Yeah.
Because I've got 2 nephews. They are all in on jiu-jitsu. They are really, really good. I think my nephew is 10 and his sister might be like 7-ish. And they're really good. And they're like surprisingly coordinated.
Yeah, I say, when my daughter was younger, I was like, I should put her into, and maybe I still will, put her into some kind of self-defense. Man, it's tough being a girl out there. So we kind of got us sidetracked into self-development, personal development. So that's just always been a thing you're interested in. And I think it's super important, but I don't think enough people put effort into it. So for me, it's like you said, you can't change someone. My thing now is, can I plant a seed in their mind so that maybe they will? I'm not going to force them or tell them to do it. But at least plant the seed. I was talking to my colleague the other day. You know, she's married, has one kid, works full time, and I asked her, it's like, not in a judgmental way, but like, do you put any effort into personal development? She said no. And it's like, okay, how do you tell someone, how do you convince someone to do something they don't want to do? Right? It's like exercise. For me and you, that's like breathing to us, right? I was talking to my buddy the other day and he's like, dude, you're always at the gym. I was like, I'm not always at the gym. I know I'm going to be at the gym at this time. It's just what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
To him, it's like, I'm always there. It's like, no, just like I work, just like I hang out with my family, the gym is part of,
Just like I sleep and eat, take a shower,
yeah.
I go to the gym.
Or I look at my other friends who don't have those other, like work is all consuming, but then they don't have other things outside of that. Or it's like, for me, whether I worked or not, I'm going to be at the gym. Whether I had a family or not, I'm going to be at the gym. It's not that I think about the gym all the time. I wouldn't consider myself a meathead at all means. Am I trying to learn and tweak and stuff like that? Yes. But back to this, my colleague, and it's like, all right, what is there something I can say or do to motivate her to be like, yeah, I do want to. So I don't know. That's something I'm trying to listen to. Like Tony Robbins just had a whole thing the other day, 3 days of, it was like 4 days of just him talking for 3 hours. So that was really fun and engaging. So it's like, all right, how, I know I'm all about it. How do I get other people to be, at least plant the seed in their mind to be like, oh yeah, change is going to happen. Why don't I take a part in that?
Yeah, well, that happened to me on that trip to Cancun with my buddies about planning to see about being in the fire department.
Yeah, he didn't say go to do it. He just said, hey, yeah, this is.
Well, it's more me being interested in like, how are you doing all this stuff?
Yeah.
And just, so it is hard to know what's going to be that trigger to cause someone to
Right.
be interested and make that change or investigate something new. It's the challenge.
Yeah, because I have a desire to work with 18 to 30-year-olds now. Now that I've been through there, done that, I'm like, okay, how do we get these people? I don't need you to believe what I believe. I don't really want you to. I don't even need you to trust everything I'm saying. I just need you to hear what I'm saying. And then if you want to prove me wrong, great. Because that means you had to go put effort into being like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But hopefully by challenging me, you went and learned whatever it is you want to learn. So that's my thought process.
Well, if you can master that, you're going to do really well.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's like communicating with people and finding what motivates them and speaking their language.
Yeah.
Finding out, what can you say or do that will cause them and so they can receive it, hear it, acknowledge it, and then move a little bit. And you don't have to move a lot. It's just a small. I mean, when you on a compass and you're in a ship, when you move it just a little bit, and that's the difference between hitting Hawaii and hitting
Right.
Asia.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's just small amounts make a big difference.
All right. So you've been you've been a firefighter for a few years. We went and got your EMT paramedic. Were you married at that point?
No.
Yeah. So
that was, I got out in 1999. And I said it was about that time where I read that book because I met my wife.
did someone give you the book, or you just?
I don't remember it specifically because I was always reading.
Yeah.
And so I was doing Warrior Spirit also. I was also a ski instructor for 7 years.
I
And
guess when you're single, you're able to find all these different hobbies and passions. And I think word to people who are single, hey, it's okay if you don't get married in your 20s. I thought that struck me while you've been talking. It's like being a parent, because I was a parent in my 20s, still am obviously, but being a new parent in your 20s is different than being a parent in your 40s. Because now you've had 20 years of life experience. Well, when you're a young parent, it's like you said, something you said struck a chord with me because it's like you're able to think through things differently as a 40-year-old parent because it's like, oh yeah, I did this or that was interesting, or I think you can think a lot. You can think life a lot more critically as a 40-year-old, or when you're a 20-year-old, you're just trying to not kill the child.
Yeah.
You're just
Well,
like,
I would say there's a balance.
right.
If
Not the right or wrong.
Yeah.
As being a 40-year-old parent is different than a 20-year-old.
I would recommend starting earlier than later because I mean, but as at my age now with I have adult kids, it's definitely challenging. I would love to be able to outrun my son. There's just no way in hell to do that now. I think, when he was a teen, we had those competitions and I was able to keep up, but we used to do I think we did the Santa Claus run around the Space Needle, I think it was right after Thanksgiving, that Thanksgiving weekend. We did that, a 5K. And so I could hang in there and beat them. But then it's like not very long.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah, that's so my kids, they're getting to the point, and you experience this. If you have a good relationship with your kids, that teenage time can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because you're able to go physically do stuff together.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that with my boys. Like, obviously I'm still stronger than them, but there's going to be a day where they're like, hey dad, we're going to beat you up. And then it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah. So I would say if I could have done it, if I wouldn't have had the baggage, I think I would have gotten started out earlier. And because earlier is better.
And yeah, my buddy,
I get that you have life experience, but 40 might be a little on the low, long side.
So Tony Robbins is 65. He has a 2-year-old. But when you're worth 500 mil, you have the help to help you through that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of 60-year-olds that are high net worth that are having kids now because they can financially afford that, but then they're able to imagine being Tony Robbins' daughter.
No, I could not imagine that.
No, so he was talking about her. She's not even 3. He's like, oh yeah, she knows Chinese, she knows piano, she knows, because he's trying to create, he's the guru of life.
Yeah.
Right? So imagine being his daughter. That could be a lot of pressure, or it can be a lot of fun because he knows he's seen through so many different scenarios. He's thought through
everything.
So now he's able to create this daughter.
She's got unlimited potential.
Yeah.
And he's just
and for him,
making it
a lot of fun because I don't think he's going to do it in such a way that doesn't put pressure on.
Right.
Right.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. And I'm curious. He tries to keep it pretty private so there's no pictures of her or anything, but he mentions obviously it's a joy in his life. But yeah, she's going to come out to be some just crazy super, because to her, she won't have limiting beliefs.
Right.
She won't have, literally the sky's the limit for her.
Yeah.
And I'm over here oh, my kid didn't do any of that by the time they were 3. But again, it's more of an inspiration than it is oh, I wish I could.
Did your kids do music?
My kids I probably should have. My 7-year-old really wants to do piano, so I said, okay, maybe this is the year. I know you can start when they're young, but
So we have piano in the house, and my mother-in-law actually started teaching them, and she continued to teach my daughter. My son took private lessons, but they are both amazing musicians too. On top of all the other stuff, they both got, my daughter, and she still does now. She's in fact, she's performing tomorrow in college. She's the lead oboist.
Wow.
She was in the Cascade Youth Symphony Orchestra as a lead oboist. They enjoyed it, and they're really, really top tier for their age.
That's another benefit of being a parent in your 40s.
Well, I think that would happen anyways, because it came from my wife's side, and she's 14 years younger than me.
Well, I'm just trying to give hope to guys, because there's a lot of guys out there.
Okay, well, if you want to do that,
and they're still single.
Yeah,
and it's like, hey, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah, it's fine. There's guys.
But I gotta also tell those guys, you gotta be a guy worth being married to.
Yes.
Right. So if you are personally developing, if you're
get rid of the baggage.
Yeah. If you have all that drama, then why would someone want to be married to you?
Yeah, I had baggage. I got rid of it.
Nice. So yeah, you read the book, and then you life happens when you're ready. Life gives you what's next.
Yep.
And that was her.
Yep.
What was that like? Was that like a long date scene, or you guys had met and then you're like,
Well, so there was a country dance place in Everett called McCabe's, and it had two-step Tuesday dance lessons. And that's where I met her. And I was like, we're in the lessons and kind of mix up with partners, and it's at a country dance place. It's great because you get to like touch, feel, and interact with someone like one-on-one. That's what I love about country dancing. And
so were you sad when Toby Keith died?
I just heard that. It was, I love Toby Keith. I was like, I was just totally sad. He's only 62.
Yeah, he died of cancer.
Yeah.
He was always a big boy.
And a true, like, serious patriot, and he loved America. I loved servicemen and women, and loved the country. And he sang a lot of fun songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that in the news.
Yeah. But it was so we met, and that first time I met her,
is she your age?
She's 14 years younger than me.
Oh, wow.
So I was like 40 and she was 26.
Wow.
At McCabe's on a Tuesday night. And I was like, it's like, she's pretty awesome. And so I asked her, hey, can we get together sometime? And
was that age gap ever like a thing like that?
It was for her mother initially.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm for my daughter, I'd be like, if I'm younger, like,
it was
the same decade.
When he told her mom, it was like, no, I'm not sure about this. So there was a lot of questions initially. But she told me her number, and I think she even told me her address. And she kind of said, you going to write that down? I says, no, I got it. And I remembered it. And
she's like,
so I called her. I called her up, and then just my schedule and her schedule didn't work out. So it was about, I want to say 3 weeks later. And I think the instructor had kind of asked her for a number two, but he never called her. So I called her, and then
isn't that a little off with the instructors? I guess, I mean, that's not like a real like teacher.
Well, is a country dance place, though. I mean, he's putting everyone through all the girls through the spin cycle.
I mean, that's a hint to anyone that's single. Go teach a class on something, and then you can pick the student that you want.
Yeah, it's one technique.
Or I would say the real life lesson there is, again, I meet a lot of young single dudes, and it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, how are you getting out there? Because it's all on the app now.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, you have to go out. If you don't want to meet a girl online, which I think they're saying 90% of relationships now are starting online, you have to go out there and do stuff, which you did. You were out there just putting yours out.
Well, we didn't have apps back then.
Right.
So,
yeah. Even today, I think that lesson still applies. That if you're hanging out in your mom's basement, pretty hard to find somebody if you don't want to find them on the app.
Yeah, you got to have some interest. You got to get out of the house. You got to go mingle and meet and talk with people. I usually don't have to, but
you're increasing your odds.
You're increasing your odds. I mean, if you're introverted and just don't get out, and you want someone that's introverted and does get out, well, I mean, it might be a little challenging. Maybe the app is the way for you. I don't know. It's like,
but they're finding even if you meet someone in the app, the connections aren't as deep.
Yeah.
It's like, sure, the algo said you were compatible, but there's so much more to that. So the age gap, eventually you won the mother-in-law over something.
Yeah, so it was interesting because so we dated a little bit, and I came over to her house, and my wife's father had passed away it was unexpected, obviously, probably 5 or 6 years before I met her.
Mm-hmm.
So her mother's a widow. And so when I went to their house, I met her mom and kind of checked out their property. They had raspberries in the backyard growing. It's like, I love raspberries. And so I immediately took care of the raspberries and really impressed my mother-in-law. Because like,
you won her heart over.
Yeah, because like no one had really taken care of them as much. And I got in there, and it's like I'm pruning them, and I'm tying them up.
Necessarily to get when you weren't doing it to win her over. You're just doing them because
I love raspberries. Yeah. I got raspberries in my backyard. I got blueberries too. And she had blueberry plants. I was like, oh, this is great. You got all this stuff here and no one's taking care of it. I can take care of some of this stuff for you. Right? Just being a nice, kind person,
right,
with opportunity. It's like, this is working out great. And she's going, maybe this guy's okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fun story. So how long did you date before you got married?
So we dated about a year. Yeah, because it was like, I think it was, I should remember this. So we got married in October of 2001. So it was shortly after the towers went down. As I wasn't working that day, but I was at home and I heard about it, and I turned on the TV after the first one, and I was watching when the second one hit, and it's like, okay, that was not an accident. The first one might have been an accident, but when that second one hit, that was not an accident.
And obviously being a firefighter for it, once you saw the aftermath.
Oh, when it went down, it's like I knew, it was like, oh, that's horrific. It's just like, it is just horrific. There's good,
And even the ones that survived, a lot of them had a lot of health issues after that.
yeah, a lot of died from cancer because they didn't take proper precautions. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that was a big disaster. But going back to my part, that was like so we were planning to get married on, like, it was October 19th in 2001. And it's like, they shut down all the flights and everything. It's like, okay, when you get married, but we're going to be able to go on a honeymoon or not? And fortunately, the flights went back to flying, and we went to New Orleans and took a cruise, and it was great. But
Nice. So you were 40 when you got married?
well, 2001, yeah. So I was 40.
Wow. So then, when did you switch over? I know you've been in firefighter this whole time. Was there a time where you switched over to paramedic?
So I was a medic. So I completed medic training in 1999.
Okay.
So from the whole time my wife has known me, I've been a medic.
Okay. So do some departments let you go back and forth, or once you made that switch, you just don't go back to being a firefighter?
Well, I don't know what other departments do. Generally, we stay as a medic. So, like right now, we have a huge shortage of medics for staffing, because we didn't anticipate, the administration didn't anticipate the number of medics retiring and promoting to captain or higher levels of responsibility.
They should have seen the numbers. Who's that? I need to go find that person and be like, hey, there's this thing called EGS.
Above my pay grade. I don't know.
Clearly. So why did you not want to be a firefighter and go to paramedic?
So in Everett, we're both. So we're a firefighter and paramedic. I just wanted to, if you're going to offer me some free training on how to do the highest level of pre-hospital medical care, I'm in.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, I'll do that.
Do you still go out as a firefighter now?
I was in a fire back in November. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. But like when you go into that shift, do you know you're going as a firefighter, paramedic, or is it like?
So I'm on the medic rig,
right,
with bunker gear.
Okay.
So when there's a fire, we show up. And so I'm at Station 5 with Engine 5. And if there's a fire in Engine 5's area, like it was at the Far West Motel last November, I think it was, I mean, we were right behind them. So they're going in, there's smoke coming out, and they got a line going in. We're going right in with them.
Okay, so you will don the gear. So
we were all in.
Okay.
All in. There is zero visibility, smoke to the floor.
Does that stuff scare you now, or is it just another day in the office?
I don't think I've ever been scared, because you're trained.
Yeah.
It's just like in the military. I mean, yeah, I suppose it's scared to have bullets shooting at you, and your job is to stop those bullets from being shot at you, right? And you don't have time to be scared in that moment. You've been trained on what to do. So when a fire happens, or even a medical emergency happens, it's like you're trained to go fix the problem. So
I think you realize that's not normal. You're not normal.
Well, it's normal for me. It's maybe not normal for
the population. That's not normal.
Well, that's called job security. So, I said I can influence my kids, and I can help influence other people, but ultimately they got to take responsibility for themselves. And
No.
I wish I knew what would work. Certainly, our government is not instilling
Yeah.
Being responsible and accountable and a good work ethic. When you start rewarding poor behavior, letting people, they could commit a crime, they go in and write down your name and they'll let you out. There's just,
Yeah.
there's some serious problems with that.
They're saying in New York, the cop that got beat up by illegal immigrants, next day that kid was out.
Oh, and he's walking it like he's some kind of rock star and then flipping everybody off. Like, I don't care about you guys. Like, I'm above you guys.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. And I don't know what the answer for that is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know how much we want to go into that, but yeah, I was doing a little research yesterday, and I saw that in America, I don't know, they're saying there's only like less than 180,000 paramedics as a country. About double the firefighters. I'm sure other areas you can just specialize in one with the other, but 180 is not a lot.
We're short medics everywhere.
And they came out to like, if you take the population divided by how many paramedics, it's like 1 for every 2,000.
Oh, it's way less than that. So we have on duty, we have 3 medic units, staffed with 2 medics, and Everett has a population of 110,000.
So if everyone's having a heart attack that day, it's going to be a rough.
Well, we'll take care of it. We'll get there.
Eventually.
Anyway, and so the number of calls where we need to do our like advanced skills is relatively small. Because even someone with a heart attack, it sounds like it's a big deal, but what they need is aspirin and a ride to the hospital. Okay, it's the people who get shot, or in a car crash that has an acute injury or medical condition that we need to like reverse right now, or they'll die. That's where we make the difference.
Mm-hmm. So for the listener, if someone calls 911, hey, let's not even talk about the money part, because I know it can be very costly. If I get a ride from you, don't send me the bill. I'll take an Uber. It's a lot cheaper. I don't want you showing up at my house.
Well, so in the city of Everett, okay, I work for a great department in a very nice city. When our billing, if you're a citizen of Everett, or if you work in Everett, we only bill your insurance company.
Okay, so if you don't have insurance, they'll still
Now that I don't know. I think Medicare or Medicaid takes care of that.
Okay.
But if you have insurance, you're not going to get a copay, which could be hundreds of dollars too.
Yeah, because those trips, I haven't researched it, but some of those trips to the hospital are pretty pricey.
And the hospital can be pricey.
Oh, yeah. So let's delve a little bit more into, for part of the reason I started this podcast was so people can get a feel for different professions. And so being a firefighter or paramedic, what would you say is like, here's some good characteristics or qualities you may want to have to make it work? Because I'm sure you've had guys that joined and didn't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could probably, having done this, so how long have you been an actual first responder?
Well, 29 and a half years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So you've seen probably the whole, obviously people have different personalities, right? So English, but just for the listener who's interested in this, hey, I'm in my early 20s or 30s or 40s. Is this a path that I could be interested in? So give the listener an idea of, hey, this is generally what we see that works for, hey, this guy lasted, he went through all the schooling and then he's like, this is not enough because of such and such.
So you got to work well with others.
Okay.
Got to get along. Got to be a team player. And we definitely don't like people who says like, oh, I know this. Like, if someone's teaching you something, be receptive and open, especially when you're new.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you do know it, just say, okay, great. I'll do it that way. Sounds good. And so be eager to learn and be equally competent to demonstrate proficiency. So where we lose people is either they don't play well with others, not a good team player, or they're not physically fit. They can't do the the demands of the job, or they just don't have the competency to do the job. Because there's certain triggers where you have to do certain things in a certain way to do it correctly, to have a safe outcome. And if you don't follow those and don't do it in the correct order, it's a danger to yourself and to the others and to the people that we take care of. So I think those are the general values. I mean, I like to say, I call it grit, mental toughness, because you're going to be tired, you're going to be hungry,
Sleep deprived.
So
Do you normally do 24-hour shifts?
We work 24-hour shifts. Yes.
Is that both firefighters and paramedics?
Yes.
Because there's a guy that I talked to in the sauna. I think he's for King County. He does 48-hour shifts.
So it varies based on the jurisdiction and also and somewhat on how busy they are. Like Everett is one of the busiest jurisdictions in Snohomish County in the state.
Well, it's a bigger city too.
It's a bigger state. It's the county seat. So you tend to get a lot of the social services, and we got a lot of homeless, a lot of fentanyl problems. So we just run a lot of calls. And so it's just not, there's no guarantee you're going to get any sleep in a night. I mean, we generally do get some nights there's no calls, which then you get fire department sleep, which is less than home sleep, right?
Yeah.
It's not great, but it's better than being up all night.
Yeah.
And so
how do you, like, knowing, I'm sure you've read about sleep and all that stuff, what do you do to combat sleep deprivation? Because I've heard there's no such thing as sleep, like you can't make up sleep debt. But I feel like there's days where I didn't sleep as well and I slept way better, but they're saying that's not a thing. Like once you've lost that sleep, the damage is done.
So there should be nothing new. It's like eat well.
Yeah.
Okay. Take naps. If I was king of the world, to be like, you have to, if you don't want to take a nap, please explain why. Otherwise, take a nap.
Yeah, I was talking to the firefighter because he's 38, and he said when he's been doing it for 18 years, a young buck still. But he said when he first got in, naps were discouraged.
Yeah.
But now that they're looking at the science and they're like, actually, they should be taking naps, right? If you want your guy to perform, because it was that old school mindset was try hard, work hard. When it's like, well, now it's like, actually, let's be smart.
Let's pace ourselves.
Yeah. Smarter is better than harder.
Yeah.
If you can do both, great. But let's be smart. By being smart, you actually get to work harder.
Yeah.
So that's what he's saying is like, no, now they're encouraging. So anyone who's paying their taxes know that you're paying for your guys to sleep.
Yeah.
But that's good. So you're encouraging that behavior, because before it would have been like, no, make sure you're being busy for the sake of being like, military. It's all about busy work, right?
Yep. So take nap, eat well. Okay. Physical fitness is a huge part.
Do they have food there ready, or you guys, everyone brings their own food?
Generally, you have your own breakfast and lunch. Sometimes there's like a team station breakfast, and usually it's like a community dinner where if there's two units there, like the medic and engine, the engine will cook one day and the next shift the medic will.
So it's like an unofficial thing, or is it pretty like, no,
It's unofficial.
Yeah.
Because there's like, if you're at a station with just the engine, they'll decide what they're going to do. And sometimes they'll just all eat on their own. Maybe they'll eat at the same time, but they'll bring their own food. And like me personally, I generally eat on my own because the cooks that cook are usually really good cooks, and they cook a lot of food.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's really difficult to eat less.
Yeah.
It's easy to overeat.
Correct.
Which as you get older is really not good.
Yeah.
Especially for me. It's like if I look at a donut, I gain a pound just by looking at it.
Yeah.
I kid you not.
Yeah.
If I actually ate one, it would not go through me. It would stick to me.
Yeah.
So eating well, exercise, and I'd like to say that like every shift when I get done in the morning, I go to LA Fitness. I don't care if I've been up all night or not. I don't care how tired I am. This is where grit comes in. It's like every excuse, I don't care.
So
I'm going there and I'm going to sweat Everett out of me.
So here's what's interesting, and I'm sure they're saying being sleep deprived is worse than driving drunk. So you're going there, and I have no fault to you, but it's just, I saw this somewhere in a sleep study. It's like, if you've been without sleep for this long, but you just train yourself.
I guess there's different levels of being drunk.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's a drunk driver that fell asleep or something the other night.
No, it wasn't drunk. It's more like you're just
impaired
process.
Or slower.
You shouldn't be doing some long distance driving because you're probably just driving from there.
Yeah. Well, so I live 8 miles from the station.
Yeah.
So not a long drive. There are people that live a lot further, and sometimes they got to pull over and just take a quick nap.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like within the community, are they like, hey, I know you didn't sleep for 24 hours. Hey, why don't you chill for a little bit before you go? Or
so it's mostly a self-policing there.
Yeah.
But even for me, it's like, I don't know. I haven't been evaluated by a police officer on how well I drive. I drive slow anyways.
So you guys have is there like a professional relationship you have with police officers where you guys engage, or is it just at the scene?
Generally at the scene. Now, so in my new role as a medical service officer, I'm going to probably interact with the police a little bit more. But I can tell you in Everett, every time an officer shows up or multiple officers show up, I thank them many times.
Yeah, because
I love our Everett police officers. They are truly very, very good at their job. They are compassionate. The stuff they put up with, I could never put up with.
You're dealing with humanity on a day.
And they've got the guns, they've got the body armor on, and they are fearless. Yeah. They will go. They are courageous.
Especially what they've been put through after the past.
They've had a couple people. They've had one of the cop that was killed up the north end of Everett.
That was the one where you was shot in the head.
Yeah.
And then got ran over by the guy. Were you working during?
I was not working on that day.
So that was probably a pretty rough day.
That was a rough day for some of the people involved, and definitely the officers, the police officers.
Whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know.
Wasn't he like crazy? So then hopefully he's not on the streets anymore.
He's not on the street.
Yeah. So yeah, I just want the listener to kind of get an idea of like, okay, I think I have what it takes, or no, I need to go work on a few different things, or, and so I think you did a good job of like, hey, these things are probably some things you want to bring to the table, or at least work on, so that when you get there, it's you're never fully prepared for anything, right? Until you go do the thing.
So one of the things that disqualifies a lot of people is claustrophobia. So we do. I think there's some kind of evaluation for that, where I don't know if you're asked if you're claustrophobic, but certainly during the training academy, you're put into dark, tight, small spaces to see how well you do. Same with heights. I mean, when you're operating at the end of a ladder 90 feet up in the air, it'd be really good if you
get the feeling when you're really high up, because I still
me and heights are like no big deal.
So you don't get any of that. Like I can, like we go hiking and I look over and I get the tingle. So did you ever have that? And eventually, so some people just don't get like the tingly in the genitals. They're just
no.
I don't know if that's fear or what that is, but it's just like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's just something that's innate.
Yeah.
Or you develop. I don't know.
Because I didn't get that when I jumped out of airplanes.
Well, it's a different sensation.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing around you that's relative to you as you're falling. Yeah. Whereas when you're above the ground, relative to the ground, and it's all in your mind, because I mean, you're hanging on to something that's perfectly stable. So you're safe. So it's your mind telling you, or
you say most guys in your force don't have that feeling of, I don't know if I'm scared of heights, but I can't control when I look over and it's like, oh, that's.
Yeah, I would say that everybody is comfortable being elevated.
Yeah.
As well as being in dark, confined spaces.
Have you ever done any of those like races up the tower? Did you ever participate?
Yeah, I did it on my, let's see, it was a birthday. I think it was like my 55th birthday or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it one time. It's insane.
Not again?
No, it's insane.
Yeah.
God. Because I don't do anything halfway. So I went hard.
Yeah, because you're in full gear, aren't you?
You're in full gear on air.
And they're racing, right? You're trying to.
Well, you're going at you're going at your own pace. It's timed.
Yeah.
And I had a really good time. But when I got up to the top,
Because how many floors is that?
I think it's 69.
Took you?
I was like a little over 17 minutes. Well, but there's a guy in my department. There's a guy in my department that does it like in 8 or 9 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. He's like top tier, like top 10 dudes.
Yeah.
So I did it in like 17:30 something. All I know is I beat one dude who was like, thinks he's like, really good. I beat him by about 3 seconds. That's my first time. But the thing is, I vividly remember when I got to the top that I couldn't take my respirator off my mask. I needed help because I was like hypoxic, like low on oxygen, and I was probably like a quart and a half low. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they took it off, and it's like I was pale. I was kind of fumbling around. And so they says like, you don't look so good. It's like, yeah, I don't feel it, but I can hardly talk. It's like, I don't feel all that good. I feel like I'm about ready to pass out. I think if there was one more floor, I would have passed out because they took my jacket off and they go, we don't feel a radial pulse. It's like, ooh, it's like my blood pressure.
You've learned
70.
You've learned to, a lot of people hit a wall. You learn not just to hit the wall, but push through the wall beyond pain and just normal. Because your body puts in place protection to not go above and beyond. And you've learned to just, that's not even a thing for you.
That's called grit.
Yeah.
Mental toughness.
Yeah. Where a lot of people, as soon as they feel any discomfort, they're done.
Yeah.
They don't even get to the wall.
Yeah.
The wall's still a mile away and they're just like, I see the wall. I don't even want to get close to it. Where you're like, for you, the wall's not even there.
No.
Did you ever get into extreme sports or like Iron Man? Because some of your peers are all about that.
No, I did a triathlon, but we got a couple really extreme athletes that are at the department, and they're really, really good.
Yeah.
But I think grit is something I've always had. And I'm not sure where it came from.
Yeah.
And I think you can learn grit because there's the program called 75 Hard.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be, if I was going to recommend a program for someone to learn grit, that would be it. Yeah. When you listen to Andy Frisella talk,
yeah, listen to his podcast.
He's extremely intense, right? Maybe too intense for a lot of beginners or someone that's on a path to improvement. And you don't have to get it right the first time.
Right.
It's a process.
Isn't his program, if you miss a day, you have to reset?
Yeah.
To me, that's a little extreme.
It is.
You got to be a little forgiving. Like, unless that person is like who's like, oh, okay, I'll reset. But for the average human being, to make them to expect someone to never make a mistake.
Well, so part of it is you have to read his book, and the rationale that he incorporates to why he has it, because it's crystal clear why he does what he does and how he does. So I'm not going to do 75 Hard
because you'd be too aggressive.
Well, part of it is like, so I've already got enough grit for where I'm at. Number two, I have a routine that keeps me in a very high level of fitness. Yeah. Okay. And it doesn't require me doing a 2-a-day workout, which is one of the requirements. Like get outdoor and walk and do a fitness routine every day for 75 days straight.
So I would argue is not good for you.
Well, but I'm not saying it's like, it's not the only way, it is a way. Right. So if someone is looking for developing grit, that is a way. I think it's one of the best ways that I'm aware of right now, where you can take an off-the-shelf program and implement it right now. Yeah. Okay. And like I said, for me, I've got grit. I have a high level of fitness that I can maintain by exercising 2 to 3 to 4 times a week. And so let's talk about my exercise. When I exercise, it's like I am doing a race. Okay. It's like people will prepare a month or 2 months or 3 months to do a race. I race every time I'm on the elliptical. Every time. Okay. It's a race. Now, sometimes I finish last and sometimes I finish first. But I have a standard that I have never missed. I have never missed my standard on the elliptical.
And how often do you do the elliptical?
So my goal is 3 times a week, sometimes 4, sometimes 2. It just depends on my.
Does it have for you maybe not have slept for 24 hours as well?
Correct.
So here's my thought on that is when people ask like, what's the best exercise? What's the best this? What's the best that? I would say, sure, there are optimal things you can do, but ultimately what are you going to do on a regular basis? Right. And so you're showing like, I would potentially say optimally, it's probably not the best thing, but it's the best thing for you because that gets you going. Right. Because generally if you push yourself that hard on a regular basis, it's hard to get progress or whatever, but it works for you. So I would say keep doing that. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend your fitness program for other people.
I wouldn't either.
Right.
I have the luxury. So I go and run a race, but I have the luxury. I know I'm not going to be doing any work the rest of that day.
Yeah.
And I know I have the luxury. I know I'm going to take a nap.
Yeah.
I know that. And I also know that in most cases, I'm not going to work that night.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get a good night's sleep. So that's part of my setup.
So how are you been able to go to sleep the next day? Because usually if someone has a bad day of sleeping, if you have a bad day of sleeping multiple times a month, and you generally are able to go to sleep easily right after, like the next day is not hard for you to go to sleep, you're just like go to sleep? Or do you have like a little routine to help you?
Well, I think by exercising really hard, because I do the elliptical, I do I do pull-ups, then I do push-ups, and I do sit-ups.
Yeah, what's interesting, because you told me you don't do any weights.
I don't do any weights. I just do pull-ups, push-ups, and sit-ups. That's it. But I do a maximum. I go to failure on each of those.
Which people like, I've looked at different fitness stuff, and they would say that's not the most optimal way to exercise, but it works for you.
So that's the key. It's like you got to find what's optimal for you, and that's going to be trial and success. And for me, I can do the same thing every time, and I do the same thing every time. Don't get bored. Don't need music. I got grit. So
for most people,
that doesn't work for everyone. So you got to find what works for you. You got to elevate your heart rate, and you got to sweat. And so I say I sweat out of me. It works.
And you don't do the sauna.
I don't do the sauna. I'm a sweaty mess when I'm done.
Do you think about? I personally find the sauna to me that's like the icing on the cake.
Yeah, well, I sweat more than a sauna would do for me, and then I don't like being hot like that.
Yeah.
So, but it's like you got to find it. It works for me.
Yeah.
I'm literally a sweaty mess. But
so I'm the opposite. So my exercise is very different than yours.
Yeah.
I almost never sweat when I exercise, unless I'm running outside. But weightlifting, don't get sweaty. The only time I get sweaty is there's a period I do the sauna before I worked out. So you do the sauna, you heat up, and then you go work out, and then you're just sweating everywhere. But so I do cardio in the winter. It's usually inside at the Y. And the only time I sweat is if I'm doing the Stairmaster. But generally, so it's very different. Like, me and you have very different whatever, but it's fine because that's what works for you. What works for me is like, I do weightlifting 5 times a week, generally in the morning. We'll try to fit in a sauna afterwards. And then I do cardio, totally separate time, usually in the evenings. In the summer, fall, winter, I try to do it outside. And in the winter, winter is usually inside. So it's very different. But the point is, when I tell people, you need to move your body.
Mm-hmm.
However you can do that. Like my setup may not work for you, right? But your setup, I probably wouldn't enjoy it. But the point is, are you moving your body? Are you increasing your heart rate? Are you stressing your muscles? That's what we're both trying to accomplish. How we get there, it's very different.
Yep.
But that's ultimately what we're trying to do. If you aren't stimulating your muscles, you're not stimulating your heart, then you're going to be a guy that you're going to show up to their door and be like, I know how you got here. So yeah, it's interesting. So
Do you record what you do?
no, I don't care.
I do. I record everything
Yeah.
because maybe it's the competitive part of me, but I also have a standard. I have a minimum standard of what I want to do and where I want to be at. And so I work to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, so here's the science. So I've done marathons. I've done a lot of those type of things. And so for you, you may not like the training because so what they're saying now, so I'm all about longevity now. Not that I want to live to 300, right? It's more like I want to have a high quality life for as long as possible. And so I look at the longevity space. And so that's kind of what I gear my exercise around. I don't have to go save someone's life. I don't have to go potentially put myself in a position that I don't need to rely on my body to do work. It's just something I enjoy. So the science today says for cardio, most of your training should be zone 2, which is lower. You can talk. So me and you could go jogging now and still talk. For you, that's not a thing. Like zone 2 is not a thing for you. You're zone 5, zone 6. So the science is saying 80% of your cardio should be zone 2, and then maybe 1 or 2 sessions should be zone 5 or 6. So that's kind of what I gear mine towards. Is that's why I don't keep track, because it's like it's not very fun to keep track of a 10-minute mile.
Yeah.
Right. When I do sprints on Saturdays, so today is Saturday, so today I should go sprinting at some point. Then I'll track just to make sure I get the sprints in. So that's where I base mine off of is, okay, what is the science saying today for optimal health or whatever? And it's like zone 2, zone 5. A lot of people, and this is the mistake I made in my early 20s, I thought every run needed to be hard. I thought I didn't know that doing easy runs is okay, because that's what's actually going to help you in the long run.
Yeah.
I've looked at the science, but again, that's just like for you, that you don't have to do that. Just if you, I would say if you actually wanted to PR once a week or once a month, then I would probably say, hey, some of those sessions, maybe not so aggressive, so that you can have a session later on that month that's more aggressive. That's all I'd say, but you don't have to do that. That's just like, hey, if you really want to do a really good PR over here at the end of the month, then your other session shouldn't be as hard. But I didn't understand that stuff in my 20s. I just like, I'm going to run this marathon. So literally and then when I was training in middle school and high school, there was a dude from the 80s, right? That mindset back then was every time needs to be hard.
Yeah.
Right. But now they're saying, no, you don't need to do that. Because
I would agree.
Yeah.
For the average person, I'm just not, I don't fit that averageness. And if I went to the gym 5 days a week, I know it would be dramatically different.
Yeah.
The challenge for me is I don't have the routine that average normal people have. So,
well, I would say mine isn't average either. It's just every person's average is different.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that you have some type of fitness regimen, because just getting people to that point is difficult. And then, that's a whole nother thing that we're trying to solve. You see this when you're on calls. Over 70% of Americans are overweight. It's a problem.
Might even be more than that.
Right. They're saying by 2030, 50% of Americans will be obese. That's a problem.
That's a huge problem.
Right. And
except when you're a firefighter or a paramedic, then that's job security.
That's job security. Yeah.
Well, I tell people, so like we get called for cardiac arrest, right? Someone, 60-year-old male, has high blood pressure, diabetes, had chest pain, collapse. Now they're not breathing. We show up and the family's all frantic. It's like, oh, please help him. And we do everything we can. But it's just ironic that the expectation is that I'm going to help fix or overturn, what it took 40 or 50 years of poor decisions, and I'm going to show up for 20 to 40 minutes to try and fix that.
And that's the thing that I think just people fail to realize is they think they are where they are in life. They don't realize they had a part to play in that. Right.
No one forced them to take that spoonful of food.
Right. So they don't realize 40, 50 years of poor decisions got, and here's the difficulty about health. One thing I enjoy about the sauna is I end up having what we're doing now, I get to do in a short version. And so it's funny because, you got to clock out at some point.
Yeah.
Like I'm in like when I was talking to the firefighter guy, I try to not spend more than 20 minutes in the sauna because then if I do, I can start getting headaches and then my whole day is kind of ruined. I did 20-minute session because we're having such a good conversation. Had to go out, come back in, did another 20 minutes. The whole day was ruined now because of that. But it was a really good conversation. Anyways, where I was going with that is, the reason why it's so difficult to get people to think about health is because they don't get instant feedback on the poor decision.
Right.
And so I can tell someone, hey, do these things because maybe in 30 years, you won't have health issues. But if you're not getting instant feedback, like I eat the donut today, I don't die tomorrow. It's I eat the donut for 30 years and then I'm 50. You show up to my house, I'm 100 pounds overweight. I have all these health issues. And you're like, well, how many donuts did you eat? Well, I ate 5,000 donuts. So that's what's difficult about health is you generally don't get the instant feedback of the poor decision you're making.
That's probably true about most aspects of life.
Yeah.
And in a world where we got this phone that you get instant gratification or instant responses or instant whatever it is, yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah. And then the other thing I think about is, so people will ask me, well, why do you care? Why do you care about other people? Why? It's their life. They can do what they want. True, but it does affect me. So I was talking to another dude in the sauna. He was in his 50s. And according to him, he was in good shape at whatever his fitness was. I try to come to the sauna. I try to do some stuff, but I'm not on any meds. I'm not on I'm sure you see how many people are on all these different medications and maybe you are, I don't really care. So he's trying to live a life where he doesn't need to go to the hospital. He doesn't need to go to the doctor. So he's relatively low on healthcare costs. His brother, exact opposite, sits on the couch all day, eats all day, is overweight, doesn't exercise. Well, guess who's more of a financial burden on the healthcare? The brother. So we had a conversation about it and he's like, it does affect me. Your poor decisions affect me because I'm paying for you.
Mm-hmm.
So when people ask me, why do I care? It's their life. It's like, well, I care because I am paying for them, right? So it does affect me because they're two brothers, right? One brother's trying to live a healthy life in his 50s. The other brother doesn't. He's paying for his poor decisions.
Absolutely.
When people ask me, why do I care? It's like, I care because I do want that person to be a better person, but I also care because it does financially affect me because of all the cost in healthcare today. I think the numbers are always changing, but it's like 17% of every dollar spent is towards healthcare, and it's increasing. So that's why I care, because it's like I want this to be a better place for me and for my kids.
I want a healthy community.
Yeah. And
it takes a community to survive.
Yeah. And that's just not something we encourage or push. And so, yeah, I get to have a lot of interesting conversations in the sauna with people. Like I was talking to a guy in his 50s and his whole perspective, so he's Hispanic, and his whole perspective on life was eat, live, and be married because tomorrow's not guaranteed. Because he, honestly probably won't make it to retirement, right? Because he's overweight, he drinks, he does all those things that don't lead to a healthy lifestyle. But in his mind, it's like, dude, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So I might as well eat the candy, I might as well drink the beer, I might as well do all those things. And sure, he has the right to do that. And I'm not going to say you don't have the right to do that. But also know that once you start having health issues, if you're not already, society as a whole is paying for you to stay alive. And that's not the message anymore.
It's worked so far, but it's not going to work forever.
Yeah, because we're paying the price, and you see that with the people that you see. So look, we can finish soon, but walk us through like a normal day, maybe not for you because I'm sure there's some hierarchy that you worked up in your like you're at a certain position, so your typical day may not be a typical day for most people in your position. But like, what's a day in the life of I've been in the job for years. This is what it looks like. So walk us through that.
A day in the life of at the job or
Yeah,
away from the job?
at the job.
At the job. So we have shift change at about 7:30
AM.
a.m. We get all our
Unless you're at a call, then that's the whole. How often are you at a call? I should let you finish, but how often are you at a call where you're not back by 7:30?
maybe
That's pretty rare.
it's like maybe once every month or two.
Okay, so it's pretty rare that
Yeah.
hit that.
So I show up. So if I'm going on duty at 7:30, I'm gonna relieve someone. They're gonna take all their gear off, their personal gear, the bunker gear, the protective equipment you wear on medical calls. I'm gonna get all my gear on.
Does that go in a locker somewhere, or does that go home with you?
It goes well. We keep it in the. We got a bag, and then it stays in the bay.
Okay.
So we have stuff that is bay and rig oriented, and then we have what we call house shoes.
Okay.
So I get on the rig, and then depending on whether I'm going to be the lead medic or the skills medic, if I'm the skills medic, I sign for the drugs. I got an inventory of the controlled drugs. I'm going to check the kits, going to check the monitor, check the rig, make sure that I want to make sure everything is ready for me to perform at the worst call with all my equipment the way I want to have it. If I'm the lead medic, I'm the one who's going to set up the computer, log into the computer, get it ready so that I can log in and do the electronic medical record. And make sure my gear's correct and just make sure that we're logged into the system, everything's working right. That's what happens initially. And then we usually have some team breakfast, kind of talk with the off-going crew about what's going on and, anything important, any cool calls.
In your bay, you have firefighters there as well, right?
So we have a medic unit and then an engine at my station that they also cross staff with a ladder. So they do both engine work and ladder work. And we have also the technical rescue rig there. So we have a little, chatter, find out what's going on. Sometimes there's training involved for the day. Most recently, we have what we call annual fit testing, where we make sure the N95 mask fits correctly. So we fit it correctly. We have a machine that tests to make sure it's working properly.
Do you feel sad that you haven't been able to have facial hair for the past 30 years? You missed out on life.
No.
I mean, some of the guys love rocking that mustache.
Yeah, I had a mustache for many years when I was younger, but it's just the way it is. I mean, in the military, I didn't have anything, so.
Like when I got out of the military, it was like I didn't shave for like a year, pretty much.
Yeah. You never know when a call's going to come in.
Right.
So like I got off the rig yesterday evening at about 5:45, and the dude is just putting his stuff on. I've got all my stuff off, and a residential fire came in, like right down the street.
Yeah.
So you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or when it's going to happen or what it's going to be. My first day as the medical service officer, I didn't even know I had a meeting that morning. So I had a meeting in my office with a whole bunch of other people. And then at 1:30, 1:45, there was a shooting out on by Painfield Way. This
is a recent event?
Yeah, that was like 2 weeks ago. A guy got shot in the neck. And
game,
drug probably, but it was like there was a standoff where he didn't surrender. He didn't come. They get him out. The dogs went in till 11:30 p.m. So our guys were on scene from like 1:45.
They're there the whole time.
The whole time. So I was there from 1:45 to I was supposed to be done at 8 p.m. It's like, hey chief, I gotta go because I'm working the next day and I've got all the food to bring for the next day. It's like I gotta leave. It's like I don't know how long this is going to be.
Yeah.
So you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. For some people that could be very frustrating because we want some control in our life, and you just realized when I'm at work, a lot of things I can't control, but I like being.
That's the positive and negative because like it's always new and different and unique and generally interesting. Not always fun, but you just never know what you're going to go to and what you're going to have to do, and you never know when. So if you need, structure, what you're going to do every hour is like, well, it's not there. We tend to have some busy work. There's a lot of online training that we need to get done every year and every quarter and every month. There's usually a daily training, and if there's not like an organized training, that is like get some stuff done on the annual training on the computer.
So you guys, like, I think people imagine you guys just sitting there chilling, waiting for an alarm, but you guys are, it's
Generally, we have things to do.
Yeah.
There's always something needs to be cleaned. There's always something needs to be checked on. There's always a report to be written. And is there downtime? Yes. And it varies by day. There's days when, like we have,
often do you have days where you have 0 calls?
maybe once a year,
Wow.
maybe.
So that's a very, very rare.
Exceptionally rare. Like
0 calls.
like to have like, yeah, it's.
So that's not.
I don't remember the last time that's happened. Although I do remember on New Year's Day on our busiest medic unit, I had a call at 11:45 a.m. and we got canceled. No calls after that. Unbelievable. It's like,
so that's like a monumental when you're.
that, yeah. It's like, no. It's like, really? No. It's like, no. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Come on. No, that's exceptionally rare. There's other days like when we had that freezing and the pipes were breaking. The medic units weren't as busy, but the engines were running 20 plus calls in a shift
Yeah.
in 24 hours. It's like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is just ridiculous. I don't know how else to say it. Just like you're just going from, like, calls are stacked up because you're going from one call to another call to another call. They come back, grab some grub if they can.
So sometimes you won't even come back to the station. You'll be on.
I can be gone for 4 or 5 hours from the station just running calls.
Did they try to have food on the truck and then like they try to have?
We try to have cash in our pocket and we'll stop and grab something to eat.
Yeah. Because you just never know.
Yeah, there's water, or what if we put some snacks on there, but there's no food. We carry cash.
Yeah.
Or stop by a station.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting life. It's like, hey, you want some adventure? Here you go.
Yeah.
But so injury and death are pretty low then.
For firefighters?
Yeah, firefighter, paramedics. The risk of death or injury.
Death is really low. Injury,
Like not even 1 a year in the department.
I like on duty. I have the last on duty death was a guy who died in a fire in like 1990.
Wow, so very, very.
For my department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very, very rare.
It's exceptionally rare.
What about injury?
Injuries happen. I mean, when you're dealing with morbidly obese people that weigh 500 or 600 pounds, you're prone to injury.
Yeah, the other day this guy, big dude, I don't know how he fell off his wheelchair. And I didn't realize how big he was. So he's like, oh, older gentleman. He's like, can you help me get on the wheelchair? And I went there and I'm not weak, but I'm not that strong. And I couldn't pick the dude up. I was like, you are so massive that, and he was dead weight because he just had this huge gut. So I can only imagine when you're dealing with those big boys and girls.
Luckily, we're not by ourselves and we know some techniques.
Yeah, you need like a little crane.
I wish we had a crane.
They're so massive. And then there's stairs, you're done.
Well, we have it was called a stair chair.
Yeah.
We have mega movers.
Yeah.
For those situations. So we know what to do in those situations.
But it comes at a cost.
But it's still hard. It is. Guys get injured a lot. Back injuries, shoulder injuries. Yeah, it's.
I mean, I get hurt playing with my kids.
Yeah.
I'll pick them up, and they're 50, 60 pounds. And it's like, you're dealing with massive human beings that just isn't normal.
Right.
So we can be done whenever you want, but I wanted to kind of touch a little bit about your kids. You don't have to share too much personal information, but um, for me, I look back, my kids they're still with me, and some of my happiest moments is like experiencing them doing whatever, but also going back and watching a video that we took and seeing them excel at that. And so, what's that like been just watching your kids grow up and experiencing being a father and advice you can give even to myself as far as like, hey, make sure you do this, or I don't know how much you want to talk about the drama you experience with your children.
Well, not much drama except like when my son was a junior. But overall, I mean, I think having a full-time mom, we consciously agreed that my wife was going to be a full-time
Especially in
mom.
your line of work, you probably want some stability.
Yeah. And so we knew that from the beginning. We knew we wanted to be parents and have kids too.
Did you want more?
And well, not at my age. It's like we agreed on two. And I don't know how I got so lucky, frankly, because I have amazing kids. I also have an amazing mother-in-law who is like very involved in my kids. Like I said, she came and taught
Did you get remarried?
No, she had a man friend for a while, and then he died unfortunately like 5 years ago.
It's rough.
But she's still involved. She taught my kids piano. She goes to their soccer games. She goes to their performances, and she's just a major part of their life. And she talks to them on the phone. So being involved in their activities, having activities. I give full credit to my wife for just being a full-time mom. She was like the PTA president in elementary school. She volunteered every time they needed a volunteer at school. She was the volunteer. They needed a chaperone at camp, at fifth grade camp. She went, and then and I would just adjust my schedule so I'm home to accommodate her absence. So she did that all through middle school or elementary school, middle school, and into high school. She was like with the band, the fundraising for the band, for the robotics program. My son was involved in the robotics program. Jackson High School went to the world finals.
Wow.
They've been there like the last couple of years. And so he was involved in that, with robotics, did really well. And I just got really lucky. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
Just very blessed. But they're just amazing kids. They've definitely absorbed a lot of our habits, which are good, like driving. My daughter felt like someone was driving too close. It's like, dude, my family, we don't drive that close. We get more space, right? Because if you have more space, you have more time, and you're probably gonna get in a crash. So
What did you talk to them about your day and some of the incidents you saw? Or
all the time.
yes.
Yeah, they are very safety aware,
Yeah.
and environment aware.
People wouldn't get that.
They would not get that. And my daughter is at Boise State University, and so there's a couple of so she was able to click with a group of friends very quickly because they have a living learning community of freshman engineering students, and some of them are local. So like first or second Friday night, they said, "Hey, let's go downtown," and she's going, "Really? Go downtown Boise?" It's like, I don't think this is a good idea, but I'm going to hang with the group. So she goes along, and she's got her phone in her pocket, and she's got her eyes, and she's kind of scanning left and right, and everyone else just doing their normal thing, like no big deal. And they had a great time.
Yeah.
She calls me the next day. She goes, "I couldn't believe it. I didn't see one homeless person. I didn't see any drug activity. I didn't see any crime." It's like,
Is that
I thought I was in a whole nother world.
is that a red state?
Boise, Idaho.
Red area?
Well, it's more conservative, yeah. So they don't have a homeless problem like we do. And they don't have a fentanyl problem either, because I asked.
Yeah. So whatever policies are de-incentivization, that's what you're going to get. I think they're saying over 50% of the homeless people in Seattle aren't from this area. So we're encouraging people to move here to be unsheltered. What's the term now? Unhomed?
I don't know.
The politically...
I call them homeless.
Yeah, but that's not politically correct. Um,
So going back to my kids, I'm just very proud of them.
yeah.
So we did have a challenge when my son was a junior, and this is at the beginning of COVID, and it was like some things has worked out great because had some challenges because he was going to go to the same college as his girlfriend, and we just thought that was kind of like that doesn't make sense. It's like, are you going there for the girl or for the college? But he did everything that we had asked. It's like look, you get good grades in high school so you can get a scholarship and then get a certificate that you graduated from college. You don't need the name of the college doesn't matter. The cost of the college matters. Make it low. Okay. And so he did his research, he checked it out, and God, it was a great plan, except he had this girlfriend that is like, I'm not sure this is.
Is he still with her now?
So this is during COVID. And so he's going to graduate a year early because he wasn't in high school very much. And his last semester before COVID hit was an online English class, right? And so then COVID happened. And so we learned as parents to number one, keep the lines of communication open, okay? And listen. We don't have to agree with it, but we also did not put any deliberate roadblocks up. Like we needed to sign the FAFSA form, the financial aid statement. It's like, you know what? We could have just said no and made it difficult or impossible for him to go. It's like, nah, just like he's making his own decisions at this point.
Yeah.
So we signed it. Okay. We talked about it. Like, this is not what I would do. This is, not what we're recommending. We think we should look at it this in a different way, but we're not going to stop you. We're going to let you do this. And so we kept the line of communication open, and he got accepted. He graduated early. So he's graduated. It's the first year of COVID in 2020. And then, and she's going to the same place. And then somehow during the summer, they broke up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't like a celebration. It was just kind of like, it was more like, it's like, that's interesting. And it's like, okay, it's like, well, we hope that, this plan sounds really good. I was really excited about the plan, just not the relationship. And then it turned out that it was brilliant. It was just a brilliant plan. He just a gifted kid that he had.
What college was he going to go to?
Well, so he went to University of Mexico in Albuquerque.
Because of her? For that?
No, that was his. Well, I thought it was like, so they both went there. I don't even know what she's doing.
Oh, so they're still end up going to the same.
He's never seen her there.
Yeah, it's such a massive.
But it fit all the criteria. Like, didn't cost much, had engineering, and
your only reservation, you didn't even have issues with the school necessarily.
No,
it was just don't go there because of her.
Well, it was just cloudy. And just from a parental point of view, observing relationship, it's like, what's going on? What's really going on? It's just hard to.
I mean, personal, again, I don't know them, but it's like young love is very silly. It's like have relationships with people, but to be that, like, unless you're trying to get married, then what do you like? Don't make big life decisions based off of.
Well, I think it's like, I misinterpreted it. He was straight. He's like, this is what I want to do. It's like, just happens that we're both going the same one, but this is what I want to do. This is my plan. And I said, no, that sounds like bullshit to me, but okay. So like I said, we kept the line of communication open. We talked about it. We did do some counseling to make sure we had a good communication with that, and just to help through the relationship portion of it. And so they stopped dating in the summer, and then he went down there, and he's just an amazing young man. It just talk about reading. I think he read 220 books last year.
Wow. Well, I'm going to college.
He keeps track.
Because most guys who go to college, only textbooks they're reading are textbooks, but he's actually reading for reading's sake.
He is the voracious reader.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I think when he was at home for Christmas, he might have read 15 or 20 books.
Nice.
Yeah, he's amazing. So he's in the Air Force ROTC. He's a wing commander. We're very proud of him. It was a kind of a shock.
His eyesight's good.
So he actually had some surgery on his eyes. to get him perfect. They were almost perfect, but not quite. So he had acceptable surgery at the Air Force. And so he's the wing commander of the ROTC unit there for the cadets. He got a pilot spot because he went through a very full-on 3-day physical medical assessment and all these other tests. And so, yeah, he's very fortunate, but that's what he wanted, to get a pilot spot. He got that. And he's just amazing.
So one thing gets you can be like, Dad, I was able to do what you weren't. But that's the cool thing with it. I know, but the cool thing about kids is you want them to succeed.
Absolutely.
Right? Even though you're competitive with your kids, you're like, I want you to be a better version of me. Whatever version that is.
He's way better.
Yeah. And so that's really cool because I see that with my kids. It's like my kids, like growing up in sports, individual sports, I was really good. Team sports, I knew I wasn't the best and I was okay with that. For my kids, they're the best in that sport. So that's really cool. It's because I didn't get that experience. Like I love track and cross country because it was all about me and did I put the work in? But once you play team sports, once you realize you're not the number one, you can accept that. But no, my kids want to be number one. And so it's really cool to see because you want your kids to succeed. And in a society where people are having kids, if you've never been a parent, you're going to look at society a lot differently than if you are a parent or not.
Yeah. I highly recommend having kids, but have a plan and have a plan and be open to like learning how to be a parent.
Yeah.
It's not innate. It's you got to learn how to be a parent. So we read a lot on parenting, like the personal development, how to be a better parent and how to deal with each year of their development. And yeah, there's a lot goes into it, but it's worth it. My daughter's amazing too. She chose Boise State on her own, which is, I'm really excited about Boise State University in Idaho. And she's just doing really, really well in her first year.
Does she want to get a degree in? Does she know?
She's a mechanical engineering just like her brother. They actually worked a summer not internship, but a summer job together. And they're in Everett building
So they seem to get along growing up together.
They get along.
Age gap?
2.5 years. They get along better than anyone else I know.
Yeah, like my daughter, her relationship with her brothers are pretty tentative. And hopefully it gets a little better. But yeah, I would like them to get along a little better. But I mean, they don't hate each other. But she can definitely, and again, it's 3 boys against 1 girl. So it's like, there's some dynamics there. But I'm hoping as they get older, they can form a better bond and relationship with each other.
Yeah. Once again, I just feel like I got lucky. I think I give my wife full credit for being such a great communicator and just having a great relationship with communicating well with each other and just respectfully talking with everyone. With both our kids.
You've heard the saying, you create your own luck.
The harder I try, the luckier I get.
Yeah. So I think it's like you look at it as luck, but you also increase the surface of that outcome. So it's like you did everything you could, but then you also realize there's a part I didn't have to play in it. Because I think if you give the message of luck, so like when my kids, they sleep really well, we never had issues. So an outside family with difficult children can look at that and say you were lucky. And my response to them would be like, because then that if you give that message to people, then they could say it's out of my control.
Yeah.
Right. So you're being humble and saying it's luck. I'm going to counter that and say, sure, there is a small part you didn't play, but you did everything you could to have that outcome. Right. So that when other parents who have kids that are maybe not turning out as well, as a parent, you had a part to play in that. Right. So it wasn't just I had lucky kids, I had not lucky kids. It's like, no, did you do what you could have done to potentially have them have the outcome that you wanted or you hoped for? So luck does play a part, but I would also say good for you for raising kids to be productive people in society. Because I don't want some just random parent to be like, oh, you're lucky.
You're right. When for the lesson learned is like, did we have guidelines for when you go to bed? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we also made it a point. We have family dinner meals.
Yes.
Like every
Right.
time.
That's the thing that people don't realize. It's like, because people will look, obviously I'm biased towards my kids, but it's like, I look at my kids and I look at kids that they associate with. My kids are 10 times better. Is that lucky? It's like, no, because we have family time, we have rules, we have regulation, like we have structure. Like, why do my kids never struggle with sleep? Because they know they're going to go to bed at this time, and they know that. Where I see other parents and they're like, I can't get my kid to go to sleep. They have tantrums throughout the day, and it's like, A, you started your day with sugar, right? And then they're already they're sleep deprived. Well, no wonder they're a monster the rest of the day. Right. So that's where it's like, that's not luck. That's deliberate action. So we had an outcome.
So on the sugar, there's a video. I think it's called That Sugar Movie.
Yeah. There's all sorts of stuff.
Well, there's this one that came out when my kids were teenagers. I think they're like in the 10 to 12 range. And we watched the whole video, and it instantaneously changed them. My son went from eating Life cereal to eating a more healthy breakfast.
Yeah.
They instantly said, sugar's bad.
Yeah.
They got it because that video was so effective,
right,
and connected with them.
Yeah.
By drinking Mountain Dew and what it does to your teeth and your body. It was the video was well made and perfect for teenagers.
Right.
And then we got a book. So my wife cooks. It's like Always Hungry. It's a cookbook with limiting the amount of sugar in your meals, and so she can make a pulled pork with like barbecue sauce that doesn't have sugar. It has that pineapple in it.
Right.
But you can't tell the difference. You wouldn't know unless someone told her. So those are some deliberate things that we did, like the sleep, eating well. We drew, like my wife makes a spinach fruit smoothie for dinner every night. So we're getting really good sustenance in our body. And we always had a family dinner, and we always say what we're happy and grateful for. We always talk about what was the worst and what was the best of the day.
Yeah, because you learned those things from probably different books you read.
Yeah.
One thing, I don't know how you would try to incorporate this into your life. I don't know if you're part of any groups. And when you're young, it's helpful to have people to look up to. So I would argue you've had a successful marriage, you've had a successful job of raising your kids. Now, can you help inspire the next generation of parents to do that? Because one thing we miss in society today, and when I was interviewing another guy who's his mid-70s, he asked me, what clubs are you part of? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, back when I was 20, we had different clubs you join. That's not really a thing. I was like, well, I'm part of LA Fitness. I was like, that's not a club. So I guess back then that was normal part of society where people from all age groups had that interaction with each other. Where today, you generally hang out with your peer group. So 20-year-olds, if you get a bunch of 20-year-olds together and they're all first-time parents, they're all going to do the same dumb mistakes.
Right.
Because they don't know how to, unless you go read a book, right? Which if you're reading one book a year and it's some dumb book, like you're not getting anywhere. So how do we get young people to say, yes, I want to look up to, or there's someone I can learn from and inspire from? Another thing Patrick Bet-David says is we have a problem with heroes that we make. We celebrate the celebrities, we celebrate the one percenters. Sure, is Elon Musk interesting? Is Jeff Bezos interesting? Yeah, but they're not really applicable. What we need to inspire, or what we need to celebrate, are people like yourself who've done a good job, who are model citizens. I want to celebrate people like you because you went and did it. Did you make millions and billions? No, but I would say you still lived a very satisfactory life. I think satisfactory, a great life. So we need to celebrate people like you so that the next generation can look up and be like, okay, that is something that is attainable, but it wasn't just luck. There's things that they did. So how do we solve the problem? I don't know, because we don't have the clubs anymore, but unless you're part of like a religious organization or you're part of some type of group or club, we don't get that today in society. And so I don't know how you can maybe think of that with your wife, be like, okay, how can we help inspire the next generation? Because look around, they're pretty lost,
Yeah.
pretty confused. They don't understand all this stuff. And so it's like, hey, come alongside of me. I'm not necessarily going to tell you what to do. Maybe if you need that or ask for that, I can do that. But that's what as I talk to these old guys, I'm encouraging them, like, please share your story. Because they're saying, yeah, we'll talk to you guys, but no one's coming. So how do you initiate that how do you bridge the gap from the people that need the help, from the people that have lived life and been like, hey, let's do this together. I'm not judging you, just showing you another path.
Right.
Right. So that's part of the goal of this is to inspire young people. Hopefully they can listen to this and be like, okay, I can be a part of that change, or I can go better myself here or there, and be inspired by stories like yours. So, because I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't know about your prior military. I like to not know much in going into it, so then I can be intrigued. Because my kids were asking me questions. I was like, I don't know. I haven't talked to him yet. Because like, did he have kids? Did he have that? I was like, I don't know. I just know I met the guy, and I think he probably have an interesting story, but I'm not going to know that until I take the time to have the conversation. And so I've really enjoyed this. Any last thoughts you have for me or the listener, or would you say, yes, go be a first responder, or just any last thoughts you want to have?
Well, I'd like to thank you for doing this. And I hope that people will do what you're suggesting, is like seek out some mentors, seek out people that have already been there, done that successfully, and learn from them.
If a young couple came up to you and asked you, I would say you'd probably be willing to share, right?
Oh yeah. Well, we do. And we have, and you guys, you surround yourself with people who have done what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's a lot more better than that than me, I think, but, yeah, you gotta have a desire to learn, desire to be better. And I don't know where that starts.
Yeah.
It's like that's kind of the foundation. It's that you want to be better and you want to learn.
And that's like when we started this whole homeschooling with my wife, I told my wife, like, the most important things is reading. Can they read? Can they write? Can they communicate? And then do they have internal motivation to better themselves?
Yeah.
When you do those, everything else will kind of take care of itself.
Yeah.
It's like, who really cares unless they're really into chemistry, really into biology, really into that stuff, great. But I think in school nowadays, we're focusing on all this other stuff when it's really like kids today don't know how to read. They don't know how to write. They don't know how to communicate, and they don't have motivation. And that's the core. If you don't have that, why does the other stuff matter?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of, like, I look at my oldest and he has all those things. The biggest like pushback I get from people is like, well, you're homeschooled. How are they going to socialize? I was like, go have a conversation with my 11-year-old. You will be amazed that he can hold a conversation with you better than you can hold a conversation with another adult.
And be respectful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They have so much respect for adults. And so it's like, I say this all the time. It's like, if you go get a bunch of 5 to 6-year-olds or 7-year-olds to hang out with each other, they're going to get dumber, not smarter, right? Because they're going to go down to, they're all going to come up with some dumb idea and do something dumb. Or because my kids are regularly interacting with me, regularly interacting with other adults, they perform at a higher level, think at a higher level. And so I was like, I don't feel like my kids are missing out. Do they go hang out with kids? Sure, when they play sports, they're hanging out with their peer group. But in general, they're able to think and operate, have critical thinking. It's almost like I say, you say, I want this, and then you get it, and you're like, did I want that? So like my 9-year-old, critical thinking skills, where you'll say something to him, and he's not necessarily talking back. He's just thinking through it critically, trying to poke a hole in what you just said. And you're just like, so that challenges me, because like one time I said, life's not fair, right? It's a very common thing. And so like, let's say they did something to their sister, and then you just say, well, life's not fair. So then I had to come back and say, life's not fair, but you can do your part to make it fair, right? So it forced me to be better what I'm trying to communicate with them because they will try to poke a hole in what you said. So it's like, I want them to be critical thinkers, but when they actually do it, that forces me to become more critical, to be like, not critical in a negative way, just, hey, they are listening to what I'm saying. So, that's fun.
Which is awesome.
But yeah, when you get the result, you're like, I don't know if I wanted it to be that exact.
Yeah.
But, well, thanks again for, serving. You're serving the city, you're serving the state, you're serving the county. And it takes a special person to do that. You're definitely not normal, but I think you can be an inspiration to your peers to get into exercise, to younger people who are thinking about maybe getting in your line of work, because there is a shortage, not a lot of you. And I think we need more guys like you. We need to celebrate people like you. I think you're worth being a role model, and you're worth being, the hero that we need today in America, not some crazy celebrity or something like that. So really appreciate it. I'm sure I'll see you around more at the gym.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being eager to learn and meet new people and record it so other people can have the opportunity to learn if they want it. Because the opportunity is there.
Right.
It's just, do you want to learn or not?
Yeah.
Because the internet is so amazing right now. It's a great time to be alive with everything that is available. It's just, do you want to learn or not? And do you want to do better?
Yeah.
And if you do, it's there. So thanks for providing good content.